Go Figure TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. Y'all know I'm your humble host, the Y'all Mean Revolution. And why is the New Jersey water contaminated, huh? Why? After the drones been flying everywhere. Before we get into that, be sure to wipe your feet. That means hit the like button. Like, share, subscribe, support the platform, y'all. Well, this is getting very dangerous and disturbing, and we can't trust the U.S. government. Why is the water in New Jersey contaminated after all of these drone sightings? All of a sudden.
Some New Jersey residents say that their water is coming out brown, and some even say it has an unusual taste or odor. The issue started late last night for American Water customers who use the Raritan water system. Dozens of towns across Union, Middlesex, Somerset counties all impacted here. And we saw people stocking up on bottled water in the area. And the Westfield School District sent out an email saying it temporarily shut down its water fountains.
I didn't smell anything, but I know it tasted not how it usually did. And I was kind of confused, but I didn't drink it the rest of the day because I was like, I don't know if I should drink this. So I just left it in my water bottle and I dumped it out when I got home.
American Water says preliminary tests of the water found no issues, but they'll continue to monitor the quality while this cause is being investigated. Residents who do see discoloration should run their water cold for 3 to 5 minutes.
Oh, the residents already know what's going on. We done looked in the comment section of these videos, and everybody is on the same page and think it's very suspicious that those drones was flying over the water reserves and all kind of stuff like that in New Jersey to begin with. But now all of a sudden the water not no good to drink. What? They can't drink the water?
It all. People in nearly 70 New Jersey municipalities dealing with water that is discolored and it's smelly. But the water utility insists it's completely safe to drink. Still, some families told Christy Kalishian they're not ready to take a sip.
You have to line up bottles here and then go in the shower.
Michael Klein's shower works perfectly fine, but it's the water itself he and his grandkids won't use.
Yeah, it still has that odor of nail polish.
I say turpentine because, it's that strong.
He and his wife, Luz Klein, still don't know why it smells that way, and they're not alone. Residents across nearly 70 towns in northern and central parts of New Jersey under the Raritan water system got an alert from water utility American Water on Wednesday night.
We are investigating and continuing to sample throughout our system.
And told us in a statement the samples, quote, confirm that water meets state and federal drinking water standards.
Monday, they said it would go away Tuesday. Wednesday said it'll be gone by Thursday.
The water is coming out clear now, but the Kleins say on Monday it was discolored. And American Water says a lot of families have been reporting the same thing.
But American Water says if it is discolored, run cold water out of the lowest level of your home for 3 to 5 minutes. For now, the Kleins, who are also worried about their daughter next door, who's still pumping breast milk, are only using bottled water.
An answer sooner rather than later would be appreciated.
In Kenilworth, New Jersey, Christy Kalishian, CBS News, New York.
The Kleins reached out to Christy when we first reported this story yesterday. If you have a tip for us, call the number there on your screen.
Oh, they didn't tell us what is it. Don't tell, just give it a couple of days. Y'all, we ain't giving it a couple of days. We don't trust y'all. What the hell did y'all do to their water? Don't try to blame it on Iran and say Iran put chemical agents in the water to kill the president. All that type of BS. We ain't going for it.
Guys, you literally cannot make this stuff up. Now, the fresh water supply in New Jersey has been tainted. Now, as you guys know, we've been talking about these mysterious drones that have been seen flying and hovering over New Jersey. And of course, now they're being reported all over America, but New Jersey was the main hot spot, and it has been for over a month. And we've seen dozens of reports of these drones flying, hovering for hours over the water reservoirs in New Jersey, over The water supply, the water that people have to drink with and bathe with and, cook with, wash their clothes with, you name it. These drones have just been flying, hovering over these water reservoirs. But we were told, hey, nothing to see here, no problem. The White House went as far as to say that there's nothing going on at all. They're acting as if everyone's crazy, but we know it's happening. But now, over 67 towns, ladies and gentlemen, you heard me right. Over 67 towns in New Jersey are reporting that their water is discolored. It has this weird color to it. And not just that, the water smells and tastes like paint thinner or nail polish, something along those lines. And now the water company is investigating to find out what went wrong. I kid you not. The water company up in New Jersey is now investigating. They've opened up an investigation to figure out what has gone wrong. Why is the water discolored all of a sudden? Why is the water smelly and stinky? And why does it taste like nail polish? And I'm just sitting here across the country feeling like I'm going crazy, shouting at the top of my lungs, what about the drones? What about the drones flying over the water reservoir? And it just so happens, folks, that the same areas, the same counties who were reporting the drone sightings, they're the same ones affected. So the same hot spots where these drones have been flying over, all of a sudden the water in these areas tastes like nail polish. It's yellow and it stinks. Really weird, right? Really weird. But as of right now, we're not being told that there's any connection. And I'm not here to officially tell you that there is a connection, but I'm saying, hey, if we're investigating here, why not start with the drones that are flying over the water reservoir? But to make matters worse, even though the water stinks, even though the water is discolored, even though it tastes like straight up poison, they're telling the people of New Jersey, hey, it's okay to drink. I kid you not. They're telling the people of New Jersey, hey, the drones aren't there. You guys are crazy. And the smelly, crappy looking water coming out of your faucets that smells like a nail salon is perfectly safe to drink. Bathe your kids in it. Insane. But let's go ahead and roll this news clip, and then I'll be right back.
Well, this map here says it all. People in nearly 70 New Jersey municipalities dealing with water that is discolored and it's smelly. But the water utility insists it's completely safe to drink. Still some
revolutionary salute to our brother Out Abundance for the donation to the war chest. Revolution is way of life. We say salute, family. Salute to your family. I appreciate the love.
families told Christy Kalishian they're not ready to take a sip.
You have to line up bottles here and then go in the shower.
Michael Klein's shower works perfectly fine, but it's the water itself he and his grandkids won't use.
Yeah, it still has that odor of nail polish.
I say turpentine because, it's that strong.
He and his wife, Luz Klein, still don't know why it smells that way, and they're not alone. Residents across nearly 70 towns in northern and central parts of New Jersey under the Raritan water system got an alert from water utility American Water on Wednesday night.
We are investigating and continuing to sample throughout our system.
And told us in a statement the samples, quote, confirm that water meets state and federal drinking water standards.
Monday, they said it would go away Tuesday. Wednesday said it'll be gone by Thursday.
The water is coming out clear now, but the Kleins say on Monday it was discolored. And American Water says a lot of families have been reporting the same thing.
But American Water says if it is discolored, run cold water out of the lowest level of your home for 3 to 5 minutes. For now, the Kleins, who are also worried about their daughter next door, who's still pumping breast milk, are only using bottled water.
An answer sooner rather than later would be appreciated.
And Kettle.
So who knows what's going on here? I guess it's a big mystery. I'm sure that the drones have nothing to do with it. But I've also seen reports and I've heard from people on the ground that have said that when they go outside and spend like extended periods outside, maybe jogging, exercising, hanging out, whatever, that they sometimes get this metallic taste in their mouth. And they claim that it's something that they've never experienced, before the last couple of months. But I've seen people talking about this over the last few weeks. So I don't know what that is either. And, we don't have any, I guess you could say, official reports of that, just people on the ground talking about it. But we do have these official reports about the water supply. And it's really frustrating. It's extremely frustrating as someone who has been talking about these drones for months. It is extremely, extremely frustrating when you see stories like this. Now the water supply is messed up. And this is something I was worried about. And, like I said, maybe it doesn't have anything to do with the drones, but at the end of the day, it has something to do with something. And they're telling the people of New Jersey that it's okay and safe to drink this stuff when it's obviously not. I think it goes without saying that if your water tastes and smells like nail polish and paint thinner, then you shouldn't drink it. But it's gotten so bad that they had to shut down all of the water fountains and stuff at the local public schools because, I kid you not, kids were drinking this stuff because they were telling everyone, it was safe. So the public school system kept the water fountains going and what have you. But now, finally, they're like, hey, we're not doing this anymore. This stuff stinks. This is obviously dangerous. So they've shut down, luckily, they've shut down the water fountains and stuff at the schools. And now the local schools are supposed to be supplying water bottles. So if you live in one of these areas and you have kids in school, ask them, are you drinking out of the water fountains? Make sure they aren't. The schools are supposedly turning them off, and the nurses' offices are supposed to be carrying water bottles for all the kids if they need water. So, I just want to put that information out there because it's kind of scary to think about the fact that kids, they're going out to recess or they have gym class and they're coming in and they're drinking this nasty, smelly, discolored paint thinner, freaking nail polish water from the already rusty, crusty freaking water fountains at school. But hey, all around crazy situation. I really, really want to just, I don't know. I'm curious as to where we will be in this situation within the next few months. Are we going to start seeing people reporting more health issues and stuff like that? Because that would be very concerning. But this is concerning enough in itself. And, I don't expect them to really do their job when it comes to the investigation, because if they were doing their job, they wouldn't be telling people it's safe to drink the water. And now I know people in these areas are going and stocking up on water bottles. Who knows? Just listen, pray for the people of New Jersey and pray for yourself because it's going to happen in our town and your city soon. It's just the way it is. Nothing's being done to stop this, so the problem is going to get worse. But for now, let me know your thoughts below.
In our skies. Objects hovering in our skies, still unexplained. The FAA has now banned the drones over wide areas of New York and New Jersey amid dozens of sightings. With this move, deadly force can now be used against unmanned aircraft if they pose a, quote, imminent security threat. And News Nation's Alina Shirazi has the very latest on this drone mystery as the government is still staying relatively silent. Alina.
Yeah, Natasha, they really are. There are still so many questions left to be answered. It's so far quiet at the White House after President Biden reassured once Americans there is nothing, quote, nefarious about the aircraft. But despite urging calm, states and the federal government have stepped up their actions this week in regard to the devices. For example, we've learned the Pentagon is now sending drone buster technology to military bases and is not ruling out shooting down some if they have to.
The bottom line is that our forces, our commanders, if they observe UAS activity that they believe represents a threat, they have the authority to conduct mitigation operations.
And meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, the House Intelligence Committee held a classified briefing with more than 24 Biden administration officials. Outside those doors, lawmakers telling me they weren't satisfied and that they need more answers. Also, some of them not ruling out a potential threat from foreign adversaries.
We got a lot of answers, but there's some unanswered questions. I think, quite frankly, the technology of drones has outpaced the law.
There's no evidence that anybody is acting unlawfully here, or that any of these drones, in as much as the authorities know anything about them, are associated with anybody with malign intent.
I think the FBI, the intelligence community, is taking this very seriously, is looking at every report, and to date, there's no evidence that there's anything nefarious going on.
My judgment, based on my experience, is that those that are over our military sites are adversarial and most likely are coming from the People's Republic of China.
It'll certainly be interesting to see how the new administration handles these drones. We know President-elect Trump, he even accused the Pentagon as well as the White House of a cover-up in all of this. Natasha.
Yeah, it is fascinating. News Nation's Alina Shirazi breaking that down for us. Thank you. And tonight, News Nation is digging deeper into the drone mystery. News Nation special correspondent and investigative journalist Ross Coulthard is dissecting the latest details in a brand new special tonight. He is speaking with former Pentagon insider and UFO hunter Luis Elizondo about these devices. Take a listen.
The FBI say it's not theirs, Homeland Security say it's not theirs, and more importantly, the Department of Energy say it's not theirs. We're running out of available agencies. I mean, there's another implication that lies behind this that worries me. Could this be a rogue element of the state?
That would be very problematic. That is, so I shudder at the thought of that, because you're now on very dangerous territory regarding organizations taking unilateral and autonomous control of things in our government, which, from my perspective, that equates to a coup d'etat, right? So that this would be if this happened, if this is actually what's happening, and there is an element to the rogue state doing this, then, my friend, we've got bigger problems on our hands than drones.
And you can watch News Nation's special report with Ross Coulthard.
This is plain spooky.
Look at this, man. Today's video, I want to show you like a handful of orbs. It's mainly going to be honing in on these orbs, plus a few extra clips, which I thought were interesting. But if you cast your mind back to a video I did a few days back, I mentioned about how much history New Jersey has regarding UFOs. One of which was a location called the Wenatchee Reservoir. All right, I actually mentioned it again on my previous video, and somebody over on X tagged me in on this. Mark Watts, thank you so much. I want you to, first of all, before we go into the video clips, take a listen to this TikToker who's talking about the Wenatchee Reservoir UFO incident, because we've spoken briefly on, well, in fact, my last video talks about the interdimensional theory of these orbs coming in and out of our dimension. And also a lot of people are talking about these orbs which are almost shape-shifting. Now, I'm yet to see an orb shape shift into something like from start to finish. I've seen the orbs split into numerous other orbs and doing strange things, going up to drones, making drones fall out of the sky, doing strange things, and obviously rapidly disappearing and things. But take a listen to this, and then we're going to go into a more deep dive into these orbs, a close look. All right, take a listen. First of all, I want to recommend going over to this TikToker because his account looks absolutely phenomenal. The account name is I'm Alive and Kicking. Make sure you go and check him out, and also just tag, say Casper says hello and like well done. Right? This guy's onto something. Listen.
Hey friends, time for another New Jersey UFO update. So this one is super crazy. You're going to want to watch this whole video. So what is it about New Jersey? Why is all this crazy stuff happening in New Jersey? Well, apparently this is not new. This has been going on for a long time there, especially around a place called Wanakee Reservoir, where there was something called the Wanakee Vortex. And back in the day...
Sorry, Wanakee, not Wanakee.
There was something called the Wanakee Wonder. So I got a very mysterious message yesterday saying, look into the Wanakee Vortex. And that was it. And they didn't respond whenever I replied. So I was like, okay. I love mysterious messages. So I dove in. So Wanakee, New Jersey is right here. And it's right next to the Picatinny Arsenal, which is sort of like the epicenter and the hotspot where all this stuff kind of originated, right? This whole drone UFO, fiasco going on up in Jersey. So it's like, okay, what is going on here? Why this area? Because this seems to really be the epicenter. I mean, there's crazy things happening all over the world, of course, but there's something about Jersey. So what is it? So going back to the 60s, there was a big UFO flap there. And there's like all these crazy stories. I mean, I dove in, there's a bunch of newspaper articles, a lot of like kind of investigative journalists back in the day did a lot of digging. And there was a bunch of different UFO sightings. A famous one by this Sheriff Cisco. There was this famous photograph taken by this guy. And all these people saw UFOs, and the way they described them is very reminiscent of what we're seeing now. It'd be like different kind of lights in the sky, like individual lights, like orbs, that would sometimes come together and form helicopters, right? They would mimic our aircraft. Exact same thing that's going on now. This was 60 years ago. And that's where this Wanakee Wonder came from. So many different people saw these UFOs over the Wanakee Reservoir that they even named them the Wanakee Wonder. And like it was seen by hundreds of people. I mean, this was like an ongoing thing. One time they described the reservoir being frozen over, and there was like a fire over it, and it was melting a hole in the ice, and that the craft was like the saucer-shaped craft that kept like turning into like an orange glowing like orb, right? All this stuff is wild, but it's very familiar, very similar to the stuff we're hearing now, but it gets way stranger. So a Dr. Bruce Cornett got wind of all this crazy stuff. One of his friends told him about the Wanakee Vortex, and he was very interested in the paranormal and stuff, and he was a researcher, and he set up some like camping expeditions out there. And they took a lot of camera equipment, lights, and that kind of stuff, and they went out to the Wanakee Reservoir to investigate this vortex, right? And these are just some of the pictures that he got. So in this picture, that is Dr. Bruce Cornett, right? That's not. There was nobody there. So at first you could say, okay, well, it was just a, kind of double exposure or something, right? That happens. Well, if you actually look at it, the pose is a little different, the stance is a little different, the lighting's a little different, right? And then there's like, they put this crystal here, and the crystal's stationary, just like he is, okay? And this crystal, see the line behind it, right? Well, it wasn't moving. See, he's not moving, nothing else is moving, but this did that. And they said every time they took pictures of the crystal, it would do that. There's a lot of different pictures of it. So then they started blowing smoke in the air and doing these light flashes and taking pictures and seeing if they could see anything. And they kept seeing these lion figures in the smoke. I thought that was super cool. And then there's this picture. So in this picture, it looks like there's a group of people here, and they're like kind of looking at another group of people over here. But these people aren't there. There's no people there. It was only these people. So that was interesting. And then in this photo, he says that this is him. That's Dr. Corset, that this wasn't there. Like there's no one there, right? So it's like another kind of double exposure. But when you really look at it, like there's things that are slightly different. Like his arm is slightly different and his socks are showing here and they're not here. So it's like it's mimicking him, but it's not him. It's really strange. And it gets stranger. Look at this one. So in this picture, that's him. That's Dr. Corset, and someone's taking his picture. He was there with a group of people, right? And this right next to him, this is the same photograph. They went and got him developed, and there shouldn't be anybody here, right? There should be nothing there. But when you actually look at this, it's like mimicking him, okay? It's not a double exposure. The pants are a different color. The shirt's different. There's like a bulge in the belly when there's not here. The lighting and the shadows are different. He zooms into the head and does some effects to it to try to figure it out. And like, it's just completely different, right? But it's similar, very similar, but different. It's mimicking. But it's not just a double exposure. You can tell a double exposure would just be this image right here. But it's different, significantly different. You know, you can look at it. The more you look at it, the more things you notice that are different. So that's very telling, because what are we seeing? So he even says possible hologram projection of ET, humorous ET attempted mimicry, right? What have we been hearing out of Jersey? That there's things mimicking airplanes and helicopters. I've talked to multiple people and they'll tell me, they're like, dude, I know in the photos and the videos, it looks like an airplane, but trust me, when you're here, you'll see an orb turn into a helicopter or turn into an airplane. It's only 100 feet in the air. It sounds like an airplane. It looks like one, but it's like 3 or 4 feet. Like, it's crazy. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And it's like really messing with people. And people keep using the word mimicking, saying that these things are mimicking, you know, our planes and our jets and helicopters and stuff. Well, this guy back in the 90s, when he went there to investigate in New Jersey at the Wanakee Reservoir, the Wanakee Vortex in New Jersey, the epicenter of all this strangeness, he back then, over 20 years ago, was saying these things were mimicking him.
So this goes back to something that I said like last week, where, you know, if we went to another planet and we were observing alien life to us, we probably wouldn't want to go there in our own tech, because we'll be seen, spotted, you know, we could scare these beings. We would probably want to go there looking like their tech, right? So it's quite interesting. I don't think that the drones that we're seeing over the east coast of the United States, because it's no longer now just New Jersey, it's spreading. I don't think those drones are necessarily what he's talking about here. I don't think the drones are, you know, a mimic of our tech. I do think that there's a possibility of these orbs potentially doing that. I would love to see an orb transforming in real time into a drone or a plane or something like that. I'm not ruling out the idea that these orbs could do that, because we've seen these orbs split, you know, drop other orbs, almost like a mothership. I think these two things are too separate. I think there's drones, which potentially are ours, and then there's orbs, which we yet to understand exactly what they are. We're going to look into some orb footage now, which is quite amazing. I gotta be honest, it's quite amazing. Now, I remember when we got the first video footage of somebody with a DSLR camera and took a photo, and it was amazing. It looked really cool, but a lot of people were saying that's just when a camera can't focus in on a light. And I gotta be honest with you, knowing a little bit about, you know, photography, I can see their point. I can see what happens. I've seen it before when I've taken, you know, my own photos. You've probably seen it on your mobile phone when you can't quite focus and you get this like blur effect. However, it seems like the more this goes on, the more that we've sort of debunked that idea. Can you remember a while ago that I showed you about that woman who was almost talking to this orb, and it did a wave effect when she says, "Oh, you know Jesus." So I look back on her account and she's actually got the long version. And I think this version is even more crazy than what we showed you originally. Okay, take a listen to this. This gets really, really look at that.
I mean, I've never seen anything like that before. Look at this, Joe.
In a second, you're going to see what I find confusing is straight, sharp lines in this. In a minute. Watch.
What is that, man? What the fuck is that? Can I focus or zoom or unfocus
So
it?
zoom it out, zoom back
Past
in.
it? I mean, it's just, I don't, what is that shape? I mean, is it a fucking...
And I'm going to show you in a minute some other footage,
It looks like
even crazier than
I don't know
this.
what it looks like.
But look at these sharp lines. Look at these sharp lines. What is all this about? Now, when you focus or can't focus on something, you get a general blur, right? A symmetrical blur. Not these things. You don't get
Doesn't even
this.
make sense.
And look at these striations
What in the
here.
hell?
Like, what? Look at this. Do you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of certain crop circles that you find, right, in fields.
Had that line across it was like a power line or something, but it's not. Well, oh yeah, maybe it is. It's not.
No, it's not, she says. Look.
Maybe because it's freaking. It's almost out of view. Look at this, Joe. Oh,
Something went over there, look. Something went past it. Right here.
Maybe because it's freaking. It's almost out of view. Look at this.
What the hell?
Look at this, Joe. Look at this, Joe. Look at this, Joe. Look at.
What is that? What is that? It's just flown past it.
Look at this, Joe. Oh, something moved in front of it just now. Oh, look, watch. What is that? No, it's not. That's not the point. And look at the shape. What is it? Look, it's turning. It looks like it's turning. Look, there's something over here on the side now that wasn't there before.
Like, that's just so crazy. And mate, I'm showing you now something which sees that and raises it, right? Watch this. Shout out to Red Hotted for this, mate. Congratulations. You've done a great video. Now, right there, you're thinking, oh, that's, just not being able to focus. This is the things that we've been seeing a lot. And a lot of speculation like, oh, that's just out of focus. Haha. No, wait. This is what's convinced me. Look at that. Look. It's out of focus, Ben. No, it's not. Watch.
That is incredible.
This gets trippy. Now you can start seeing it morphing around inside, right? It's out of focus, Ben. It's not.
It is
Watch. Here we go.
Kind of an orb. I see the electricity. This is nuts.
The same thing that's happening from her camera. Look at this. Look at the colors. It gets better. I'm telling you, it gets better. You can't tell me that's out of focus. Okay, it's not clear cut 4K, right? But you can clearly see that something's going on in there. Look, I know, mate.
What's with the colors?
I know, mate. What on the Xbox is going on here, man? Look at, mate. This is an invasion of the watermelon orbs.
Look at that. Look at that.
It'd be interesting to see if this correlates in any way to, look.
This is plain fucking spooky shit.
You love that. I'm wondering if this correlates to, when you, what's it called when you get shapes from sound?
Wow, look at this shit.
You know, when you get patterns from sound waves. I wonder if it's got something to do with that. Because these things are just they're too symmetrical. Look at this, man.
Look at that.
And then it just goes, and then it just disappears. Which there reminds me of that video that I did a while ago about the grey, like the Xbox bloody shape, somatics, vibrations form patterns in sand and other similar materials, right? I wonder if it's got something to do with that, with some sort of resonating. I mean, look at. Hang on a second. Seeing this pattern in sound. What is that? This seems very. Are these things? When we talk about spirituality and stuff, we talk generally. I say we, right? This is something I'm sort of delving into, spirituality and things like that. And there's a lot of talk about vibration, about being on a particular vibration, not listening to certain music which is on a certain wavelength, certain vibration. I think it'd be important. It'd be a good idea for somebody who's really understands about sound to look into these orbs and try to work out some sort of what vibration it is that they're on. Mate, imagine that. Okay, right. Talking about sound that I want to show you. This, right, I gotta admit, this seems a little bit far-fetched, but it doesn't look like CGI. It doesn't look like AI creation. You know, it's making the rounds. It's really interesting, and there's a particular sound with this. Now, we know that these orbs and stuff don't break the sound barrier or anything like that, but take a listen and take a look at this. Right, let's just break this down. If we zoom in, we're seeing two orb-like things here, which disappear. 2 orbs. Sorry, got my bloody cursor in front of you. Right? There's 2 orbs, clearly. Then we hear 2 bangs. But we hear 2 bangs before these things have disappeared. I thought, is this some sort of firework or something like that? Right? We hear the 2 bangs before they disappeared. Then the craziest thing happens is the cloud forms into some sort of plane of some sort, right? And then another orb starts to appear. Is this what we were talking about earlier? Where is this the beginning of a manifestation into something, right? Because this is such a magic trick. This smoke comes out of those. It looks like this smoke comes out of those orbs. Look, it's actually like blowing out of these orbs. Look, watch here and here. So it's creating smoke. I think this is like a flare, and hence why it's blowing something out of it. And then so it's then disappearing. You're hearing the bang, and then what's happening? You're getting a secondary chemical reaction, right? Because of maybe a condensed smoke with the chemicals and fumes in it, and it's relighting again. Now, that was me breaking it down in real time, because I got to admit, at first when I saw it, I was like, oh, that's a New Jersey orb, right? But now looking at it, I'm thinking that might be a flare, especially because of the color of it. Anyway, let's move on. is the drone pointing a powerful laser into space? Possible unknown drone pointing a powerful laser into space in New Jersey, December 19th, 2024.
Powerful laser into space? What's happening? Where's the government?
Now, hang on a second. That light beam isn't coming from that, I don't think. Because if you look here, it misses it slightly. There. It misses it. That's coming from the ground. Now it's hitting it. Is this somebody that is pointing some sort of laser at a blimp in the sky?
Drone pointing.
I'm not too sure about that one. Again, I'm debunking these as I go. I you know, what I tend to do is I look at the things that people have tagged me on. I find it visually impressive. It's like, wow, okay, I'm going to save that. I'm looking into it. That's me looking into it. I'm not too sure. I was going to say it'd be interesting to see what tempo that light is. Is it anybody that knows Morse code? Anybody knows Morse code? Is that saying something? Now, I know that previously I've had a little bit of hate by saying that, as if a super intelligent race would use Morse code. Well, my argument is, why wouldn't they? If they're trying to communicate with us, they would use a language, right, that we're familiar with, Morse code. Like, you know, either speech or Morse code, something that we know. They ain't going to talk to us in their language when they know that we don't understand what they're talking about. So, you know, that's my argument. Okay, let's go back to looking deep into these orbs again. This gentleman here has changed his view on what these orbs are, because he's done some sort of like deep analysis on video footage of an orb. Thanks, Shorty, as well, for sending me this over, mate. I would like to, I think, is it Pro Pixel Imaging and UPA Research? This is the channel, okay? So make sure you go and give them a follow and a well done. Take a little look at this.
I'm shooting an addendum video for the analysis that I did yesterday on the orb over Atlantic City. As soon as I posted it, there were a number of comments from you guys that said cube and a sphere. It looks like a cube. So I'm looking at this with a different pair of eyes now. And I think I agree with everybody that's been.
So people are saying there's a cube within a sphere here.
Saying that. So just looking at the image that was brought out in the best fidelity, you can see, I see a cube-like object. I do see it. All right. I do see it. And if we look to the video, that's from that shot. I do see a very cubic-like image. That's messy. And this one just these two clips just don't have enough data in it. This one, what's nice about this is it wasn't overexposed, so you don't get so much halo that you can't see exactly what's going on. Let's just let this play. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'm changing the assessment. I think this is a cube in a sphere. All right, that's why I love this crowdsourcing stuff. You put information out there, people can look at it and tell you they think you're wrong or suggest other things. Yeah, so I think it's a cube in a sphere at this point. So that's the adjustment I'm making. Thanks for the feedback. I think this is awesome. That's why we're doing this. And yeah, let's see what else we get.
Every time I go outside now, I see brightish stars or brightish things in the sky. I'm like, oh, what's that? Is that an orb? Is that a drone? Let me take a picture. And I did. I took a picture. And it's so strange. I saw this because I zoomed in and I saw this. That's what I zoomed in. And I saw that 1, 2, took two. I took some pictures, right? Took 4 pictures. Now, oh, sorry. Now, that also looks like a cube, right? It looks like a cube. This was 4 photos that I took. I tried to take video footage, and it was terrible because it was so small but bright. And then because I was out there for quite some time, I watched it. And over a certain amount of time, it just moved. It was a satellite. I think it was a bright satellite. Is this the phone making out what it's trying to do? And that's what generally like a phone does to try to create the image because it's zooming in so much. So I'm not too sure. And also where it sort of flickers. At some point, you're going to see a cube. But like right now, you can say, "Oh, that looks like a disc." Yeah. If you pause it again, now that looks like something else. But it's just like it's all over the shop.
You know what?
But at certain points, it looks like a cube.
Yeah.
Like this looks like a sphere within a sphere with a hole in the middle of it. I don't know. I just think. Out of the sheer amount of time, it mainly looks like a cube. So you just think, oh, it's a cube in there, right? I don't know. Maybe if you recorded that half an hour later, it could be wobbling about a lot. It might look like a sphere within a sphere. It could be like a triangle within. It just so happens that recording it at that particular point looks like a square.
I'm changing the assessment. I think this is
it's a great analysis. But that's just my opinion. I could be totally wrong. I really didn't intentionally start this video to be like debunking this sort of stuff. I can't leave you on debunking 3 videos, all right? Look at these 2 orbs. Look at this. These orbs are up to something. I don't know what they are. Is it to do with the Wanakee Reservoir? Are they interdimensional? Are they morphing into something? Are they morphing into these drones? What do you reckon? Thank you so much.
It comes to these drones, the whole drone sightings, the whole drone phenomena, there is definitely something else in the skies. Now, I don't know if there's something else are these orbs. I don't know if they are these plasmoids people keep talking about, living entities that are made of plasma, angels, demons, something made from the government. I don't know. But there's definitely something else up there, and they are not drones. So last night I went ahead and took my dog for a walk. I look up at the sky, and the sky was definitely active with drones. You could definitely tell there were drones up there, but there was something else up there, and it was red. This had no flashing light. It had no blinking lights like most of these drones do, these FAA approved lights. It had none of that, but it was definitely moving. And I thought to myself, is this thing following us? But that was just me being paranoid, but it was definitely moving. Now, before I go ahead and show you the video footage of this thing moving, When I got back to my house after I was finished the walk, I noticed that it was no longer moving. It was just staying there. It was staying put like a star. So I take out my phone and I try to zoom in on it to record it staying put to see if I can get a better image of it. And for whatever reason, it just completely blocked itself out on video from me being able to zoom in on it while it was now stationary. It went totally blank where I can't see it. That is crazy. You can see it. This is the video footage of it beforehand. This is when it was moving before I had arrived home. And again, it's really strange because when it was moving, I was able to zoom in on it. But when it was just staying still, when it was just staying there in the sky, it just blurred itself out. Really, really weird. Now, I try to zoom in on this as much as possible on the computer, and this is the image of it, zoomed in again on the computer. What is this? It looks like some kind of head with horns and a red thing in the middle, and it looks like it has an aura around it. I have never seen anything like this before. Like, it's even hard to describe, but I can definitely tell you it's not any drone that I know of anyway. This is definitely not a drone, and it's not a planet or a star because, like I said, it was moving. Then, like I said, when I had gotten home, it just stayed there, just stayed in the sky. The strange part is that the location that it was in, it would be over waters.
East, right?
Yeah.
So that's over the ocean?
Yep.
It's crazy.
Let me see.
Not.
We'll make it bigger.
That's as far as it goes.
Oh. It just did like a cloud thing.
It was moving before, but for whatever reason, it's just staying there. That's insane. Now, like I said in the beginning of the video, it felt like this thing was following us. Like, that's what I was thinking, but I tossed it aside as being paranoid. But apparently, this other individual on TikTok, Deanna Camacho, had experienced the same thing. She recorded this thing following her movements. Now, I don't know if this thing is really following her movements or not, mocking her or whatever, but it really is the strangest feeling. It really feels like you're being watched.
All right, watch my move, right? I'm gonna go over here. Look, it's mocking my movement. I'm gonna go over here. Oop. I'm gonna go towards the tree. Now I'm gonna go over here. Watch, I go this way. It's following, it's mocking my movement. And I'm just going side by side. Watch. Watch. I'm gonna go back this way. Now I'm gonna go close to my house. It's following my movement. Watch. It's right there. Look, I just take one step. Looks like it came closer. Like it's moving with me. It's moving. Now let's try something. Like it moved. It's like it knows. Then I'm gonna walk over here. It's literally moving when I move. See that? It knows I see it. Then when I get close, it like telling you that's an angel. Look, it makes my camera go crazy. Look at it turning.
Like I said, I really don't know what these things are, and it seems like the drones are either observing them, tracking them, or possibly trying to distract us away from them, taking our attention away from these orbs. Because if you notice, news, media, and the government, they are not talking about the orbs. They are talking about the drones. But in any case, thank you so much for watching. If you like this channel and you want to see more, please subscribe. If you're already subscribed, please like.
Y'all, with the advent of the UFO and drone sightings in New Jersey, lawmakers have set up new air restrictions for drone owners. And this is not just high altitude restrictions. Now you cannot fly your drone out at night from 0 to 400 feet either. They're trying to eliminate the possibility of these being just regular commercial drones. And of course, the night after they place these restrictions, we're seeing these strange drone UFOs flying in restricted airspace. That video was uploaded by Troll But Realist from Clifton, New Jersey. And what I find most interesting is that this time, this drone thing is not following FAA regulations. We're not seeing the red and green lights on the sides pretending to be a commercial craft. It's just kind of eerily hovering there, flashing between whatever colors it wants. It actually reminds me of this other submission by Poncho Villa 71, which actually took place in Los Angeles. You're going to see a very similar sighting in this clip. It almost looks like a drone or whatever they're pretending to be. Again, sans the FAA regulation lights. These lights are a little different. Sound off in the comments. Let me know what you think about this. those don't look like the traditional drone UAP we've been seeing, the ones that started in New Jersey that you could mistake for a drone or even a plane. I feel like those are completely different. Again, the lighting is off, the way that it looks, its shape, very strange. The next clip comes from Important Reindeer 6 from Blue Springs, Missouri, who claims that this iridescent light flickering a million colors descended into the sky, stood there for a couple hours, and then dipped. Check it out.
It's just standing right there.
What I find most interesting is not just that the witness saw it there for hours, but that it was an extremely windy night where even people were getting tossed around in the street, and this thing is just maintaining wherever it wants to be, regardless of the wind. And they said it wasn't a drone or a plane or anything they've ever seen. What do you think? Next, we have an eerie clip from Riverside, California. This is a short clip, but showcases a strange anomaly in the sky that is presenting itself in just this weird, I guess the best way to describe it would be string of lights. I don't know. Check it out. Next, we have one of the strangest sightings I've ever seen. This comes from the camera that is aboard the New Jersey battleships. This is facing towards the river, and you're going to see this strange object that some people are calling a cloaked drone blast across the sky. I mean, this thing looks, I've never seen anything like this. Check this out. That is bananas. And whatever it is, that was huge. And did you see how, I mean, I could see why they said like a cloaked drone, because it looked like it was like in a shell of whatever that light was. That's one hell of a sighting. All of this comes after NASA accidentally allowed these strange objects on their live stream right before, of course, cutting the stream. And it doesn't end there. With one of the strangest UFO, like pure UFO sightings we've ever seen. No, these are not drones. These are Tic Tac-like UFOs seemingly interacting with each other. Again, another video I've never seen anything like. This comes from John Leonard Walson's YouTube channel, who's been sky watching, checking out for these anomalies, and has finally captured some crazy-ish in the sky. Not only am I going to share this clip with you guys, but I'm going to have his channel linked in the description because you need to go check him out. Check out these two UFOs interacting with each other, and let me know in the comments, what the hell do you think this is?
Roll up that good dinner, man. Salute, salute. All right, we're going to chop it up.
What the did y'all see that? And how like it looked like it almost looked like one went up to the other one and then they were kissing. And then like they became one seemingly and whatever spiral shit they did across. What was that? It reminds me of oh my god, you know when like two flies are like having sex in the air, zipping around your room, like what the is going on? That's what that looked like. I've never seen UFOs do. What were they doing? What UFO dance was that? Y'all, these sightings are getting stranger and stranger, and the answers are making less and less sense. Sound off in the comments with what you think all of this means. Check out that compilation.
As you know, on December 19, 2024, Russian President Vladimir Putin held a large press conference to summarize the results of the outgoing year. For 5 hours, he answered questions from journalists from all over the world and Russian citizens. Commenting on this press conference, many experts and analysts noticed that the Russian president was in an excellent mood and looked very confident even against the backdrop of provocative questions from Western journalists. Well, my dear truth seekers, I personally was not surprised at the fact that Russian President Vladimir Putin was in an excellent mood and was very confident even against the backdrop of uncomfortable and even provocative questions from Western propagandists. The fact is that the Russian army has completely seized the initiative on the battlefield and dominates the enemy in all directions of the special military operation zone. Almost every day, the Russian army liberates strategically important settlements not only in the Donbass, but also in other directions of the front. In addition, over the past 3 years, new types of weapons have entered service with Russia, which has no analogs in the world. For example, the world's most powerful hypersonic ballistic missile Orshnik has already been recognized by many leading military experts and analysts as a weapon capable of changing the course of any war. In addition, the Russian leader also stated that he did not consider the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad to be a strategic defeat for Moscow in the geopolitical world arena. According to Vladimir Putin, Russia has achieved all its goals in Syria. And the current Syrian authorities are very interested in maintaining good and friendly relations with Moscow. Moreover, the Russian president stressed that it is the current Syrian authorities who are asking Moscow not to leave the region and maintain its military presence on the territory of the military bases in Tartus and Khmeimim. They are asking us to stay in Syria. In particular, in Tartus and Khmeimim. I don't know, we need to think about it, because if we stay, we will have to do something in the interests of Damascus. And for this, our interests should be aligned, Vladimir Putin said. By the way, during this press conference, came more good news for Moscow from the Special Military Operations Zone. In particular, war correspondents reported that the Ukrainian army units had completely fled the strategically important city of Korokovo. Moreover, this information was also confirmed by the famous German journalist and Russophobe, Julian Rops. In particular, on December 19, he stated that the Ukrainian army had lost Korokovo. According to him, this city came under the full control of Russian troops. At the same time, it is reported that almost all Ukrainian officials, who were part of the military-civilian administration of the city of Korokovo, burned their Ukrainian passports and defected to Russia. It is reported that these Ukrainian officials have already passed on quite a large amount of classified information to the Russian military. In particular, they said that there were classified places in the city, where the Ukrainian army stored provisions and ammunition. They also provided the Russian military with other valuable information about the Ukrainian army. Simultaneously with this, on the night of December 20th, the Russian aerospace forces, together with the missile forces, launched another massive missile attack on military objects and energy infrastructure facilities in Ukraine. This time, almost all key cities in such Ukrainian regions as Zhytomyr, Kiev, Kharkiv, Sumy, Chernihiv, Cherkasy, Dnipropetrovsk, and Poltava were subjected to a massive missile attack. According to independent monitoring services, about 60 explosions were recorded in all key settlements of these regions. Against this backdrop, I would like to highlight the missile attack on the capital of Ukraine, Kiev. In particular, on the night of December 20th, Russian missiles hit the control center of the Special Service of Ukraine and the building of the Design Bureau Luch in the Ukrainian capital. In addition, one U.S. air defense system Patriot was also destroyed in Kiev last night, along with the combat crew. Later, the coordinator of the Russian underground in Ukraine, Sergei Lebedev, confirmed that as a result of this missile attack, several high-ranking officers of the Ukrainian army and NATO forces, including 2 generals of the Special Service of Ukraine, were killed. Indeed, the fact that immediately after that, on the evening of December 20th, the Ukrainian army and NATO forces fired 15 missiles at the city of Relsk, in the Kursk region, indicates that Russia's enemies lost not only high-ranking officers, but also experienced generals in Kiev. By the way, the authorities of the Kursk region have already reported that as a result of this missile attack, 6 people were killed, including a 6-month-old child. Another 10 people, including a 13-year-old teenager, were seriously injured. At the moment, doctors are doing their best to save these people's lives. Even though the Russian military has not yet commented on the missile attack on the Kursk region, sources in the Ukrainian General Staff have already stated that NATO means of surveillance allegedly recorded the process of preparing the launch of the hypersonic ballistic missile Orshnik at the Kapustin Yar test site. According to them, the probability that another launch of the latest Russian missile may take place in the coming hours is very high. Against this backdrop, insiders in Kiev said that Ukrainian politicians, including Vladimir Zelensky, had once again hidden in underground bunkers for fear of the latest hypersonic ballistic missile Orshnik. By the way, an authoritative military expert and political scientist Alexander Kazak said the latest Russian missile Orshnik scares NATO and the Pentagon very much, since Western air defense systems and new generation advanced Western radars failed to detect and record the moment of the launch of this missile, which took place on November 21st. Advanced Western radars and air defense systems proved powerless in front of the latest Russian missile. In addition, insiders in Moscow also added fuel to the fire. In particular, they said that Vladimir Putin had ordered the deployment of the latest Russian missiles in Chukotka, which is located just 86 kilometers from the United States. In fact, the presence of the latest Russian hypersonic ballistic missiles in Chukotka in full combat readiness has made all key American military bases in the United States vulnerable. Moreover, given the fact that the range of the newest Russian missile is 5,500 kilometers, now, if necessary, Russia can easily destroy all launch silos in the United States, depriving Washington of the opportunity for a retaliatory missile strike. Thus, it becomes clear why Putin is in an excellent mood. He is just well aware that in the event of a global war, Russia's enemies will not have even the slightest chance of winning.
Israel and the U.S. as the Houthi rebels targeting with a ballistic, hypersonic ballistic. And the United States said they had their best air defense systems. In Israel, the THAAD missile system that was supposed to be able to stop. This is talk about the ultimate humiliation for the U.S. While you worry about Russia. Wait a minute, how the hell did the Houthi rebels get this type of advanced weapons? Well, no, we gave him that. Well, the devastation, man, humiliation. U.S. and Israel.
Hi, everybody. Today is Saturday, December 21st, and our friends Scott and Larry Johnson are back with us. Welcome back.
Thanks. You know, me showing up with Scott like this, Ray McGovern's going to accuse me of cheating on him.
Ray's a nice guy, but when he starts thinking you're committing infidelity, he turns into a son of a gun. You know?
Let's get started with what has happened in Russia and in Kazan. We know this city because of the latest summit, BRICS summit in Kazan. And right now, a drone attack on civilians on apartment buildings. And here is the footage of this attack. And it seems that it was a residential complex. It says that a building with apartments, a beauty salon, and a kindergarten. So it doesn't seem to have any sort of a strategic objective behind this attack. And I want to know your take, and let's get started with Larry. Your take on what has happened.
Well, it's not just this. Ukraine, I think, has gone in full desperation mode with the backing of the United States and the United Kingdom, because first the attack on General Kirillov and the murder of Kirillov, followed up then by the combination of Storm Shadow and attack of missiles launched into Kursk, and then this attack in Kazan, and then a bomb just went off in Moscow. So what you're looking at is, I think, a desperation move by Ukraine, really trying. I don't know if their intent is to provoke a reaction from Russia, or in hopes that it will bring the West in. But regardless, they're going to get a reaction from Russia. There's no doubt about that.
Scott.
It's 100% active terrorism. There's no military value to what's being done here. It's purely political. So political. I mean, there's a legal definition of terrorism, and what the Ukrainians are doing right now is terrorism, plain and simple. Add to this, there's a string of arsonists. So the Ukrainians are paying people to run around in Russia and set buildings on fire. It's just 100% terrorism. It's not going to achieve what they wanted to achieve. I mean, there's no strategic value to this. They haven't destroyed anything. They haven't, anything of value. They haven't, killed large numbers of people. I don't think anybody's died yet in this recent round. The assassination of Kirillov, of course, is different. But what the Russian response will be is, there will be a response. Russia has already shown that it's fully prepared to continue the large-scale use of the array of weapons that's already been used against Ukraine: the Caliber missiles, Iskanders, the various cruise missiles and weapons of that sort. The Oreshnik was so far one of escalation to open the possibility of strategic intervention, because the Oreshnik is a strategic weapon system. But Russia has been loath to go that route again, because the problem is once you normalize that escalation, then what's the next level? And I think Russia is recognizing that the Ukraine and their allies in Europe and the United States are just, excuse me for saying, batshit crazy. There's no rhyme or reason for what's being done here, except, people trying to burn the house down, take the house down with them as the Biden administration goes, as Germany collapses, as France collapses, as Europe collapses, as NATO stutters. Let me put it in this perspective. When I was in Congress a week and a half ago, I met with a senior representative, and part of the discussion was the briefing that the CIA has been providing to the White House and Congress about Russia's new nuclear doctrine, and whether or not the lowering of the threshold was bluff or not by Russia. And the way that the mainstream media was portraying it was that the CIA was telling Congress and the White House that Russia was bluffing. And when I mentioned that to this person, because my belief is that Russia is not bluffing,
this person who has received the briefing said that's not what the briefers were saying at all. The briefers were saying that Russia's not bluffing. And the problem was that the Biden administration said, that's okay, we're ready for this, meaning we're ready for a nuclear war. And now you take that sentiment, which was expressed to members of Congress, all of whom this person said, bipartisan in the room, jaws dropped and went, what do you mean you're ready for a nuclear war? Well, we're Congress, and this is the first time we're hearing this. And this is insanity. When you have a Biden administration that appears to be ready to engage in a nuclear war with Russia over Ukraine, that means that these acts of terrorism it's just part of a process of trying to provoke Russia, to get Russia to escalate into the ultimate form of Trump-proofing policy, which would be a nuclear war. Now, the idiots in Washington, D.C. believe it will be a limited nuclear war. Listen to Thomas Buchanan, the J5 plans guy of Strategic Command, saying, we're ready to have this nuclear exchange with Russia, almost like, hey, it's a game. And we're going to win, by the way. He said, we're going to win. We're going to prevail. But I think in a question either right after that, he said, we haven't been honest with the American people about what winning looks like. He said, it ain't going to be life as you know it. Even if we win, quote unquote, your life, the people who survive, their life will be completely different, never the same. We can run the whole thing: food supply, water supply, healthcare, infrastructure, electricity, all these things gone because it's a nuclear war. And the people that are left will be, engaged in basic survival. And he said, maybe we should be more honest with the American people about what's in store for them if we do what they want to do. Putin, has said that without Russia, a world without Russia is a world not worth living in. Meaning that if the West wants to defeat Russia and take Russia down, then Russia will take everybody down with them. But he also has worked really hard to get Russia up to where they're at. He's not suicidal. And I do think that even though he's come under a lot of criticism, and he'll come under a lot of criticism again with this latest round of attacks, he's been very adept at escalation management and keeping his eye on the target. Remember, as these terrorist attacks took place that have zero military value, the Russian armed forces are advancing regularly across the line of contact. This war is won. And you have a new president coming in who has indicated that, he wants to bring this war to an end. Now, he's going to have some adjustments as Putin introduces into what Russian reality really is. None of this Keith Kellogg fantasy world. But I think Putin would like this war to end. Has a president that, incoming president that appears to be willing to engage in a dialogue to that effect. And therefore, knowing that Biden's willing to go to a nuclear war over this thing, just, suck it up. It's not changing the outcome. It's a political issue for Russia, but it's not an existential political issue because beyond being angry and embarrassed, this doesn't change the needle at all. So I don't know. I mean, I agree with Larry. There's going to be a response, but I don't know if this is the event that causes Russia to unleash the Oreshnik. Maybe this will just be another 120, missile and drone attack that devastates what's left of the Ukrainian energy infrastructure. Maybe takes out some command centers. There will be a retaliation, but Putin so far has been very adept at avoiding stepping into the traps laid by Ukraine and NATO to try and create the circumstances that would justify, NATO intervention in Ukraine. And so we'll see what happens. But it's criminally stupid on the part of Ukraine. Criminally stupid.
Yeah, we've learned that Zelensky announced that Bill Burns, CIA Director Bill Burns, has arrived in Ukraine. And what would be the main goal of this visit, Larry, in your opinion?
No idea. I mean, let's go back to these drone strikes for a minute. particularly the one in Kazan, that required NATO ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. That required some technical support on the side of NATO. So the West now is making no attempt to hide its attacks on Russia, that it's helping, aiding, and abetting. I mean, they've been doing it all along for the last 10 years, but now they're just being out and out blatant about it. So either Bill Burns is there to say, okay, guys, yeah, we're with you. Screw, we're gonna screw those Russians. We're gonna get them. Or he's there saying, you better cut this out. We have no intention of following up on this. Is he going to try to shut it down, or is he going to expand it? But the fact that this attack into Kazan with the distance covered by those drones, this is important because I think Ukraine has now crossed a line. And Scott's right in that these are, we're using the Bibi Netanyahu definition of terrorism. I give Netanyahu credit for his appearance with Bill Buckley years, 1986, I believe it was, where he said, terrorism is violence against civilians for political purposes. That's exactly what's going on. That's exactly what Ukraine is doing. There's not any military objective or purpose. But, the thing that worries me is I don't think the West, and especially the United States, takes Putin and Lavrov and Gerasimov seriously. They don't take them seriously because they say, they're weak. Oh, we're going to do this. And they said it's a red line. Well, we crossed that red line. They didn't do anything. And so we'll just keep pushing. And they're going to push and push. And, it's that the cinematic moment where, the bully's constantly finger poking, the superhero in the chest. And finally, the superhero, breaks their finger and, crushes their face. And that, I think that's where we're headed. That, these, I think some of the attacks in Kursk actually did kill a couple of people. And, but the biggest outrage is that it's all on civilians. It's not military. Because I put the Kirillov in a different category, because I say, okay, they put a scooter outside his house with a bomb in it. What would have happened if an Air Force plane dropped the bomb on his house and killed him? That's okay. We'll allow that, but war is war. If you kill a military personnel, armed, unarmed, they're wearing a uniform, that's different than civilians. Civilians should be off limits, but as we've seen in the history of the United States, we've employed terrorism as one of our main tactics.
Scott, what did they need to announce it? Usually when Bill Burns goes there, nobody talks about it, but right now they have announced it. Why they did that?
Was it Kiev? Dima, was it Kiev that announced it, or the U.S. that announced it?
Zelensky announced it.
Oh, okay.
I don't believe if Zelensky had announced a clandestine arrival, he'd be in a lot of trouble. So I don't think that Burns he's done. Understand that Bill Burns isn't a CIA professional. He's a State Department professional. His specialty, he wrote a book called The Back Channel, and he was brought in by Joe Biden to use the CIA as a back channel for various issues. The CIA has a history of doing just that. If you take a look at what's going on in Palestine, the CIA was the back channel that communicated between the Palestinian Liberation Organization and the Israelis for a long time. And so that was Burns' job. What is he doing there now? I think it's a public show of support by an agency that is out of control. We have a political change taking place, but one of the big challenges is going to be before Donald Trump and Tulsi Gabbard and others is reforming the CIA. The CIA has a huge array of infrastructure dedicated to Ukraine. And a lot of it is, black, not known, operating on budgets that Congress isn't even aware of, doing things that Congress isn't even aware of. Remember, since 2015, the CIA put 12 to 20 bases along the border with Ukraine and Russia. We're talking about it's hard to get Congress to fund a CIA station in a capital adequately. To put in 12 to 20 bases, they could be of different sizes doing different things, but this is significant commitment of CIA resources. The CIA is heavily invested in Ukraine. And I think Burns's mission was to come in and say, governments come and go, but the CIA is forever. And we're here with you. And you can rely upon that. Because Larry knows is better than me. What happened when Deutsch came into the CIA saying, I'm going to reform the hell out of this place, and he brought his own people in, and the CIA old timers went, we just aren't going to talk to you, listen to you, do anything you want. We're going to freeze your ass out, and you're going to fail. And he did. The CIA is a power under its own. Until which time it's defunded and eliminated, it will continue to do whatever the hell it wants to do. And because the budget is so black in many of these things, it's not easy for even a Tulsi Gabbard to come in, a DNI to come in and start, messing around, because she'll get shut out and money's hidden here, there, and everywhere. And I just think that Burns was basically there to say, I'm here, the CIA's here, we'll always be here, and you can count on us, sort of thing. A very public display of support at a time when Europe is desperate for, because remember, he's not just playing, the reason why this was made public isn't because it's done for the benefit of Zelensky. It's done for the benefit of everybody watching this. You have Europe right now panicking. What's going to happen when Trump comes in? And at least now people in the European capitals go, yeah, but the CIA is there. And the CIA, if you've been playing this game in Ukraine, that everybody knows that the CIA is there. The CIA is there in spades. And so this is sort of meant to reassure European allies and Ukrainians alike that there's at least one element, a major element of the United States government that is committing to continuing this support of Ukraine. That's what I think is going on. Because otherwise, why the hell have a public meeting?
Yeah. Yesterday, Putin said that war was declared on the Russian world today. And do you think that the special military operation is changing its face in the mind of Putin before Donald Trump come into office?
I don't know. Look, I know what I would do, and I'm sure the general staff in Russia have a lot more experience and know their country far better. But I guess I'm sort of surprised that they haven't just dropped every bridge across the Dnieper River to prevent any kind of resupply to the Ukrainian army that's east of the Dnieper, and then focus upon destroying any attempts to set up an alternative logistic resupply. And just choke off the army, starve them out completely. Now, I'm sure the Russians have thought this through, and they have a good reason for not doing it. But it is true they're achieving some remarkable progress now on the ground across the entire line of contact throughout, primarily in the Donbass, but in Donetsk, up into Luhansk, but also in Kursk, where they're have encircled the Ukrainians there. And the Ukrainians are dying at a horrific pace. But I am a little puzzled with Putin saying, "Oh well, the world's at war with us." Hello, you just figure that out. The United States and the United Kingdom, they've been at war with Russia now for at least 10 years. The Russians were just sort of, I don't want to say naive, but they're far more mature and adults, thinking that maybe maybe we can sit down and talk, maybe we can reason. And my message to them would be, God bless you. You've got a good intent, but understand that what you're dealing with over here is pure evil. These folks in Washington and London have no intention whatsoever of wanting to sit down and have peace with the Russians and respect the Russians as equals. That's why they're participating and enabling these terrorist attacks. They are, the United States and the United Kingdom, I believe with all my heart, have been directly involved in these terrorist attacks inside Russia.
Yeah. Scott.
I agree. I mean, this is, look, it's mind-boggling. The only thing I'll add to this is that, I've and Ray McGovern, Larry's boyfriend, taught me a long time ago when it comes to, because I consider myself to be a Russian hand. I mean, that's if I was going to say there's one area that I can hold my own against most people, it would be the Russia issue and things of that nature, especially as it pertains to arms control. But at the end of the day, I'm just a Marine intelligence officer who gets excited about silly things and maybe doesn't see the big picture that you should see all the time. I'm always learning. I'm always in the learning mode because I understand my shortcomings. In Ray's a guy who's been teaching me. I listen to everything Ray tells me, and he said a long time ago, just listen to the Russians. They're telling you exactly what they're thinking and doing. There's no code. There's no, gamesmanship like being done in Washington, D.C. Listen to what they say and you'll understand what they mean because they're saying it. You just have to listen to it. So, and he was at that time talking about the old art of, Larry, you remember the good old days when, especially when Brezhnev was kicking the bucket and then Dropov was coming in and then he kicked the bucket and then Chernenko came in. And you had the Sovietologists who look at the photographs of all the guys up there on Victory Day or May Day. They didn't have Victory Day back then, May Day and all this kind of stuff. And you're saying, okay, he's 3 centimeters closer to the big man, and this guy's 5 centimeters back, and this guy isn't even there right now. And what does this all mean? And then you sit there and they write big papers about Politburo internal dynamics based upon photo analysis of placement on the stage. And Ray's going, don't do that. Don't waste your time doing that. Go pick up the FBIS, the Foreign Broadcast Information Service, which was it used to be CIA run, and then they turned it into, I guess it was always CIA up until the very end.
Yeah.
But it was open source for official use only. I mean, it wasn't meant to be because of copyright issues, but you could get it. I got it when I was in college, so it's not a problem. But you could read all the Soviet newspapers. You'd get the transcripts of the radio broadcasts, the television broadcasts, and you'd hear what the Soviets are saying to themselves. And it was always just spot on, accurate. And so I listened to Vladimir Putin, and I listened to every word he says. And I've come away with the fact that he doesn't waste any words. Every word he says is for a reason. And the way he says it, whether it's with humor, because there's times when he'll put out soldiers' humor there that normally, Russians are prudish in public, in public statements. They don't like to tell racy jokes in public, but there are times when Putin will throw out something like that for a reason. He's trying to achieve an impact on those who are listening to him. And when he speaks about foreign leaders, I mean, I remember I had to laugh. If you remember, Angela Merkel met with him, and Putin brought his dog out, and she's of course afraid of dogs. So she said, Putin did this to specific. And Putin later came out and said, I didn't know. You're Vladimir Putin, former head of the KGB. You knew damn well what you were doing, and you did it for a reason. You're setting the stage to dominate Angela Merkel, to put her at ease, at ill ease. Nothing's by accident. I'm not calling him a liar. I mean, I'm just saying that everything he does is for a reason. And so when he speaks about Donald Trump, if you remember when after Trump got elected, Putin gave a speech where he said, Trump is a brave man. He was shot. He said all the things that you need to say to have Donald Trump go, what? Say that again? Oh yeah, that makes me feel good. I'm a brave man. I'm a big man. I'm a hero, man. Did you see the way I got up? Putin says that it's impressed him and all that kind of, I mean, he's sitting there stroking Trump to death on this kind of stuff, which means now when he says something like Russia, the world is now at war with the Russian nation, or whatever that phrase was, I think Putin knows that Trump is surrounded by idiots about Russia. I mean, Keith Kellogg is, with all due respect to a former lieutenant general whose heroism is beyond doubt. I'm not criticizing, this man won the Silver Star in Vietnam for doing things that, running under fire to rescue wounded soldiers. You'll never hear me say anything bad about this man as a professional warrior. But when it comes to Russia, he knows jack squat, and he shouldn't open his mouth. He shouldn't opine on anything because he just embarrasses himself. And he was recently talking about, the Ukrainians have suffered 170,000 casualties, while Russia has suffered 6 times as many. And if you're the Russians, you're just going, we can't deal with this moron. Don't send him over here. So I think a lot of the statements that Putin is making right now, because he has, not quite 30 days, but we're under 30 days until Trump becomes president. But a lot can happen during that time. This is the time when Putin, I believe, is shaping Trump's world. And a lot of what he's going to say and a lot of what he's going to do is designed to influence Trump to be in the right place on January 20th. Because Trump's not in the right place right now. He's saying some of the right things, but he's saying some pretty stupid things too. And if Trump comes to the table with the stupid things, Russia's just going to ignore him. And that'll be a missed opportunity. I think Putin wants the first thing that Trump puts on the table to be something that Russia can grab onto and begin a process of negotiating an end to this conflict that meets Russian goals and objectives. Because if they don't, then you start, now you have Trump getting defensive and, peace through strength, and then, start posturing, all this nonsense about he's going to flood Europe with money and get NATO to start sending more weapons into Ukraine, and all the Russians will do is blow all that crap up too. Putin doesn't want to do that. And so I think you're going to see carefully released words and sentences of this nature that are his way of informing Team Trump and informing Trump himself about the reality of Russia. And I'd love to talk to Tucker. He probably wouldn't admit this, but I personally think that Tucker was some sort of back channel envoy sent by Team Trump to Russia to have a conversation with Lavrov, but also to send signals.
Revolutionary salute to our brother Richard Chavis for the donation to the war chest. Revolution is a way of life. Absolutely appreciate the love, family. Salute to you.
And receive signals. These signals may have been private or they may have been done in public, but to create a framework of thought and ideas around which a sound Russian policy could be built. But Trump has to free himself of Keith Kellogg and people of that ilk, because they are truly ignorant of Russia. And I think a lot of what Putin is saying right now is designed to bypass those people and get straight to Trump, who listens to everything Putin says.
Yeah, here is Financial Times reporting that Donald Trump said to Europeans that he's going to continue supporting Ukraine. And Larry, do you think that, does it have anything to do with the reality of what's going on in the mindset of Donald Trump, or they're just making things up?
Trump is being lied to by his intelligence briefers. And we discovered that when this whole Time Person of the Year coverage came out. And in Trump's interview with the Times reporter, Time magazine reporter. He said that he referred to the terrible loss of life in the war in Ukraine, and he talked about the 600,000 casualties that Russia had suffered versus the 400,000 that Ukraine had suffered, and said it was just terrible, but that's what he was being told. Well, that's, to use Ray McGovern's exquisite term, that's male bovine excrement. That's the MBE, and it's not being awarded by the King of England or the Queen of England. It is nonsense. It's not true. But the point is, if the intelligence community is simply taking what Ukraine's given them and then passing it off as authentic intelligence to Trump or to Biden or to whoever else, then right away you've built in these false expectations, false beliefs that they think, oh yeah, well, Russia's weak. Russia's on the ropes. Russia's desperate for a deal. So by God, we're going there and make him a deal. Well, that's a lie. None of that's true. It's just the opposite. Russia's winning. Russia holds all the trump cards. The United States doesn't have anything to offer Russia other than we're going to stop funding Ukraine. We're going to pull out the CIA and close all those bases that we put in Ukraine. And just as a parenthetical comment or side note, during the war in Afghanistan over 18 years, CIA didn't have more than 6 bases scattered throughout Afghanistan, okay? And that was during a full-blown war there. And here in Ukraine, we had over 20. There's a lot to this story that we do not know in terms of the CIA involvement with the Ukrainians. But it'll be an ugly story once it comes out. But still, the point is, Trump's being lied to, and by virtue of being lied to, he's not on a solid footing to even have a substantive negotiations with Russia, because what he's going to offer them is nonsense.
Scott, how desperate is the situation in the mind of the Biden administration right now, and what we can expect from them before Donald Trump takes office?
In the mind of Biden or the Biden administration? Because in the mind of Biden, there ain't nothing going on in the mind of Biden right now. And we can say that with a smile, but actually this is extremely dangerous situation. Even the New York Times, which is historically protective of Biden, has admitted this man is virtually brain dead. The stories that are coming out about his lack of preparation, his lack of focus, and how he's controlled. He can't be president. And then, interestingly enough, the story also talks about how they bypass the Defense Department about Ukraine, about a situation where the Defense Department is, with the exception of the CIA's 20 bases, the Defense Department was the lead on all this. And the person that's bypassing all this is Tony Blinken, the Secretary of State, who, by the way, I think is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the chain of command in succession to the presidency. You got the president, the vice president, Speaker of the House, the Senate pro tempore, or whatever the hell they call that. Oh, 5th. Okay, so then I think the Secretary of State comes after that. And I think that Blinken basically, Kamala Harris is a non-entity. She doesn't factor into anything, especially after her embarrassing defeat. Biden's brain dead. The Speaker of the House can just be left out. The Secretary of State doesn't have the obligation. The Secretary of State is now the President of the United States. I just put that out there for people to consider. This is a man who is seeking to destroy any chance that Trump has of salvaging the failures of the Biden administration. They're desperate right now. I mean, I will say this, that unless something changes in the next Congress, which gets sworn in on the 3rd of January or something of that nature, Blinken will probably get away with this, but he really should be impeached and should be held to account by Congress and charged with literal treason, because everything he's doing, he's not authorized to do. He's not authorized to make presidential decisions. He's not the president of the United States. He's not authorized to shield the reality of the president's declining mental acuity to members of government. He's not authorized to bypass the Department of Defense when it comes to critical issues pertaining to the defense of the United States, but he's doing it, probably with the help of Jake Sullivan at the National Security Council. These two people should be put up, and you can't impeach Sullivan because he's a national security advisor. There was no Senate confirmation process, but Blinken should be impeached, should be questioned, and should be held to account legally for what he's doing here. This is criminal. We keep calling ourselves a democracy, but this isn't a democracy if you can have a rogue Secretary of State believing that he gets to be the president of the United States de facto, because we have a brain dead president, a non-functioning vice president, and clueless House and Senate about what's going on. So this is a very dangerous situation. But I do believe that the closer we get to January 20th, and the more real Trump's efforts to disrupt the establishment become. Again, I don't like going off on tangents, but Team Trump, includes this unelected duo called Elon Musk and Vivek. And with one tweet, Elon Musk did what nobody else in Congress could do: kill a bill that that Mike Johnson was trying to sneak through. One tweet. And it enraged the public so much that the intervention compelled Congress to do so. I think that's beautiful. I think that's democracy in action, to awaken the people, to inform them of things going. But this scares the hell out of the establishment. The fact that Trump is coming in not using the tools that are normally used, the tools that have been taken over by the establishment, manipulated by the establishment. Trump's coming in with a whole new way of doing business, to include the weaponization of information through X. And they don't know how to deal with it. And so there's a lot of talk now that they're going to burn the house down rather than turn it over to Trump. And that's very dangerous.
Yeah. Elon Musk, who's not interested in war with Russia, with Iran. I do believe that he's not interested in any sort of war with China as well. Is he going to achieve it because these people who are right now, who are going to work with Donald Trump, are much more powerful, Scott and Larry. He did this on X, and when this administration comes to power in Washington, are they going to be Vivek and Elon Musk? How powerful they're going to be, in your opinion?
Well, no, Vivek and Musk are, they're going to have some limited power because they're not a direct member of the cabinet. Yeah, they've got the direct approach to Trump, but never underestimate the power of bureaucracy to create obstacles, slow walk things, and create hindrances and roadblocks. So the best we could hope for is that all these government employees who've been posting on Twitter /X and other social media that by God, if these Trump people come in, we're going to quit. Let's hope that that's true. If they quit, then that'll make Vivek and Elon's job much easier. Elon's making out really well with the Pentagon, with his Starlink system. I think it's called Star Shield for the military, because I was told that last year they did an emergency order for 4,000 satellites to be put up under Star Shield, and that was money that went into Elon's pocket. And now this year they've had another big backdoor cyber event that the Chinese U.S. Department of Justice required backdoors to be put into the whole phone network that the government uses for even secure classified communications using a particular app on government issued cell phones. Well, the Chinese broke that, have been in it apparently for 2 years. So now the word's circulating that DOD is going to turn all of that communication contracts that used to go to AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile. They're going to turn it all over to Musk, and they're going to go through Star Shield. So, Musk is, he's doing okay. It's got the Democrats. He's living rent free in their head, because they were already calling him President Musk because of his. He's got a lot of influence, and he's not afraid to use it. And using it, he's also making a lot of money.
Yeah, I will just add this though. Yeah, he's unelected. He carries no real power. I mean, he doesn't have the power of the government. But I think the most recent tweet proves something. We've talked in the past about AIPAC and the power of the Israeli lobby, and one of the things that they have is the ability to primary you, and especially in congressional politics, being primaried is the kiss of death. It's very difficult to run a contested primary and survive because you burn up all your resources. So even if you win, you're rolling in weakened. Plus, if it's a vicious primary, your Republican or your co-party opponent is throwing out all the dirt on you and everything, destroying you, and that's just free ammunition for when you get to the big game. And so the AIPAC just threatens to primary you, and that's enough to bring most people into compliance, to say, well, we don't want to be primaried, so we're going to play the game here. I think you're going to see Musk and Vivek play the primary game, and they have the ability to mobilize instantly in any district they want, hundreds of thousands of people. This is an unprecedented weapon because it's not about buying a vote, which is what AIPAC does, bring $100 million in. This is simply it doesn't cost Musk anything to tweet or to post or whatever the hell you call it, exit or something, whatever you call it on X. And all he has to do is throw the spotlight on a representative and say, this is the person that caused this to happen. I think he needs to be primaried. And that guy's in hot water. And I think this is a new level of political leverage that Trump's going to make ample use of. And you combine Trump's social media presence, which when he's president, he has to be careful about how he uses that, with Musk's, who doesn't have to worry about anything. And suddenly a senator who might otherwise say, well, I'm in the United States Senate and my job is to slow roll things and be the mature head here and not that. And you're saying, yeah, but dude, you're up for re-election in 2026 and you're going to get primaried and you're going to lose. Suddenly he's going to be like, Donald Trump's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I believe that we should do whatever Donald Trump wants because I want to stay in power for another 6 years. How many elected officials have the courage to say, I don't give a damn what Trump thinks or Musk thinks. I'm going to do the right thing. Well, you can do that and become unemployed. And I applaud that. I wish more people would do that. But most of them are politicians because they want to stay in power and they will be chameleons. And right now, the prevailing color is the color of Trump, Musk, and Vivek. And I think you're going to see a lot of members of Congress who otherwise might have done what Larry says, provide the bureaucratic obstacles to slow roll things. I think with the ability of Musk and Vivek to put a spotlight on these people and call them out and threaten primaries, that you're going to see a lot less opposition to some things. Just look at this bill. This thing was supposed to slide through. Nobody's supposed to talk about it. 1,100 pages, and Musk sends out a tweet, and instantly the government's shutting down. It's down to 110 pages and on through. I'm not saying it made America better. I'm just saying that a lot of people who didn't want that to happen made it happen because of the power of a tweet sent out by Elon Musk.
We had an interaction between Israel and Yemen, and here is the footage of hypersonic missile coming from Yemen. And you see these two interceptors that fail to hit the missile, and the missile hits the target. And here is this footage is better. It shows how two interceptors going up and they failed to hit the missile.
Whoops.
And here comes the
There it is, dropping down. Yep.
and coming and hitting the target, getting out of the hand of the Biden administration. I don't know if they're interested in continuing this way.
Well, yeah, redeem it. It can't get out of hand if you never had it in your hand in the first place. You know, that's the problem with the Biden administration. Look, the Houthis, they've been kicking the U.S. ass for a year. Yeah, we bomb them, we blow up some sand, we take out some infrastructure in Sana'a. But go back to Lloyd Austin and his pompous announcement back in December of 2023 about Operation Prosperity Guardian, and we're going to reopen the Red Sea, and we're going to bring an end to this lawless behavior by the Houthis. Well, here we are a year later, and I don't ever want to hear another Western pundit say a damn thing about Russia's lack of progress against Ukraine. At least with Ukraine, Russia's been fighting a real army. Here's the United States that can't beat basically a 15th century army that's armed with some modern day weapons. You know, they've shut down the Red Sea, and they can launch missiles into Israel that evade Israeli air defense systems. You know, maybe the United States ought to hire the Houthis as consultants to, hey, maybe you could help us work out how to win some wars here. Because the Houthis sure doing a damn sight better than the United States has been.
Scott, your take.
Yeah, I was just tickled pink to watch that missile come in. Again, I'm not in favor of civilian casualties. I'm not happy if people, I think 18 people were injured on the ground. I'm not cheering that. What I'm cheering is the fact that the arrogance of Israel and the United States, because there's some talk that may have been a THAAD system, not a Patriot or something. I don't know what's it, but there's some talk that may have been a THAAD system, which is the most advanced American interceptor out there. And the Houthi beat it. I mean, I'm in communication with people that know a little bit about Ansarallah, and we do them a disservice by mocking. I'm guilty of it. I talk about sandals and curved daggers,
curved knives, yeah.
But they also produce hypersonic missiles, and they have some of the finest engineers around, and they're capable of very advanced thinking when it comes to military operations. They just fired a missile that defeated the most advanced air defense anti-ballistic missile defense system in the West. And it defeated it handily. I mean, you saw that missile accelerate past. I wish Ted Polster was here, because he was famous during the Gulf War of doing a frame-by-frame analysis of the intercepts and the Iraqi Scuds coming in, and they're just missing. And here you have these two things. They're using these aren't kinetic hits. They're using a warhead that's supposed to spray out and like a shotgun shell and get the shrapnel hit, but the warhead's already past it by the time it shoots. I mean, so there was no chance of hitting this thing. And the Houthi aren't stupid; they're good engineers. I have a feeling that warhead was doing sort of like a stutter step. What I mean by that is the missile brings it in, and then by the time it separates, it's because they study our architecture. They understand where the X-band radar is picking them up and how tracks and when, at what point you're going to get that launch. And understand that once you launch that missile's now committed to an algorithm of intercept. Now it has some adjustments. That's why you see the interceptor do this S maneuver, because it's launched and then it's making some adjustments to the thing. And right about here, as it's adjusted, I think what you saw is that warhead accelerated, and they didn't have time to. It accelerated right past them. This is pretty advanced stuff. This isn't, Abdul in the sandbox sitting there, sharpening his curved blade on a rock, picking his toenails. No, these are guys who are studying some of the most advanced military technology in the world today, mastering it and coming up with the ability to defeat it. And if you think you can bomb Ansarallah into submission, then you know nothing about the history of these people, and you know nothing about the history of the region. These are some of the most resilient, steadfast people ever, and they don't break. They don't. They die. You can kill them. You can starve them to death. You can blow them up, but you can't break them. And we will break and bend long before they do. I mean, this is the one bright spot of the axis of resistance in the aftermath of the fall of Syria, is that Ansarallah is just saying, "We're here," and they saw their statement: "If you make Sana'a shake, Tel Aviv will shake twice as much tonight." And they're firing. They'll be firing tonight, guaranteed. And there will probably be the Palestine 2 type missile, hypersonic, can't be beat. And I just hope they get their targeting better. It'd be nice to see them take out the Kyria, the Ministry of Defense. It would be nice for them to bring real harm, real pain to the Israeli government. Hit the Knesset, hit seats of government. What's Israel going to do? Bomb you more? I mean, so these guys. It's not that they don't care. Of course they care, but you're not going to break them. They are committed. They beat the United States Navy. They beat the United States Navy. They forced us to retreat from the field of battle. Now we're back for round 2, but they beat us the first time around. We didn't achieve our mission. They continued their mission. I'm just filled with admiration and for these people. Not because I'm sitting here saying that I'm all in on the Houthi cause. I am, but I'm not allowed to say that because I'm supposed to be an impartial analyst. I'm just impressed with the way they have behaved. If they were my enemy, I would say I would give them the highest respect and the highest regard. I would still spend my every waking moment trying to defeat them. But at least, I wouldn't sit there in my mind and say these people are unworthy of doing battle with. They're the most worthy opponent imaginable because they are so tough and resilient and unbending.
Israeli Broadcasting Corporation, Khan, it's citing sources that Israel is trying to build an alliance against the Houthis and Ansarullah in Yemen. Who's going to be in this alliance, Larry, in your opinion?
I don't know. United States, United Kingdom. I don't think it's going to be Egypt. They're going to try to get Jordan, but I think the weakness that's been displayed by the United States, I think is really surprised and alarmed some of the traditional, the Saudis, the Jordanians, and the Egyptians. They're sort of the big three there in the region, apart from Israel. And I guess they always assumed that the United States had a technological military edge. Now the Houthis have exposed that completely. It's astonishing. And Scott's right. And I like to make fun of, really portray them as the ultimate underdog. Heavy emphasis on sandals and curved knives. But they're building some pretty sophisticated missiles. And they've been fighting, this war's been going on for well over, I think, 10 years. And they've been fighting the United States as a proxy as well. And the Saudis, they've been using mercenaries, essentially. The Saudis don't actually go out and fight for their country. They always hire somebody else to go do it. The Houthis have sent a clear message throughout the world that, the United States may not be as tough as it says it is, because we fought them to a standstill for more than 12 months. remarkable.
Scott, do you think that Donald Trump would be able to convince Saudi Arabia to change its manner toward Houthis?
I think Donald Trump is going to try very hard to get Saudi Arabia to change its manner, and I don't have confidence in Saudi Arabia's ability to stand up in the long term. That the pressure that Trump can bring to bear will probably cause the Saudis to reverse their current public posture, which is that they will never normalize relations with Israel until which time there's an independent Palestinian state whose capital is in East Jerusalem. Trump is also talking about something that's fascinating, recognizing in Somalia you have a singular nation, but you've got Somalia down here with Mogadishu as the capital. In the middle, you got Puntland or something of that nature, and then up north you've got something that was on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember. Somaliland, I don't know. They call it something different up north, and Eritrea is doing business with them, treating them as an independent state, seeking port access, etc. Not Eritrea, I'm sorry, Ethiopia. And Trump has said he'll recognize them as an independent state. This is a fascinating thing for Trump to commit to. I mean, of all the places in the earth, all the geopolitical crises that are taking place, Trump takes the time to say, yeah, this Somaliland or whatever they're calling it up north, I'm going to recognize that as an independent state. Until you look at the map, and literally it's right across the water from Yemen. And then now you realize that what Trump is going to seek to do is, if this problem continues, he's going to build bases, deploy troops, and suddenly we have the ability to project power in a more meaningful fashion, sustainable fashion, and less risky fashion than just using aircraft carriers or long-range bombers flying out of wherever they came from, maybe Al Udeid Air Base or something. But this means that Trump is being briefed on a larger anti-Iranian strategy designed to roll back the axis of resistance and Iran itself. So I think that Israel, even though Biden's the president, Israel doesn't care about. Just keep the weapons going. That's all they care about at this point in time. Israel understands who the real power in the United States is right now, and it's Donald Trump. And Israel is starting to, pave the way forward for the policies they'd like to see implemented under Trump. And I think you're seeing that already. There's a sort of, the two sides working together. Israel talking about creating this anti-Houthi coalition, and Donald Trump, starting to, indicate what kind of pieces are going to be, put on that board. So, yeah, I think it is. Does it mean they're going to win? No. Again, the Houthi don't bend, they don't break, and they can outlast a lot of people. As Larry said, this has been going on for 10 years. 4 more years for the Houthi, they'll do it. And then Trump's not president anymore. And then the question is, who's going to be president, and what are they willing to sacrifice to continue a fight that appears not to be winnable?
How about the meeting between Iran, Egypt, and Turkey, Scott? Do you think that still Turkey is thinking of having Aleppo and those cities as part of Turkey? They're going to capture it? Because recently Erdogan was talking about the sovereignty of Syria should be respected. It seems that they're not going to capture it, and they're talking to Israelis right now. How do you see the situation between Turkey and Israel?
Me or Larry?
Larry, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, Pezeshkian is still, I think he's been following advice from Uncle Vladimir in Moscow to keep his powder dry, show that you are the reasonable one in terms of diplomacy, and to try to keep doors open. With Turkey, both Iran Iran and Turkey, they share something in common, or at least a couple of things. One, I think both are concerned about the use of the illegal narcotics trafficking and the criminal drug gangs that are operating in Syria and involving and affecting populations in Turkey and in Iran. Then you got the Kurds. Neither Iran nor Turkey want to see an independent Kurdish nation come to pass. Pezeshkian, I think, going to Egypt is just trying to engage with, how much water al-Sisi is ready to still carry for the West, because I don't see Iran's support for Hamas or even Hezbollah slackening, and I think a lot of Western analysts have overstated. Yeah, the fall of Syria creates a temporary, I call it a temporary logistics problem for Iran moving weapons to Hezbollah. But last I checked, that area of the world, I believe, has been a major smuggling route for about 3,000 years. And it's a lot of territory, and that neither the United States nor Turkey nor Israel have the manpower, woman power, people power to cover it. And, Iran, despite having sanctions, still has some money. And there's still some good border guards out there to be bought, and so the smuggling is going to continue, and so Hezbollah's ability to fight Israel is not, I don't see, is going to be significantly weakened, and if anything, it's going to be Turkey and Israel, and to a lesser extent Jordan, that are going to be weakened by this adventure. Israel doesn't have the manpower to police another big area that's 3 times, 4 times the size of Gaza. Hell, they can't even control Gaza, But yeah, we can't control Gaza, but let's go chop off another big chunk of territory. So we have another logistics line that we got to support. Are you kidding me? Yeah, I'd hate to be the logs guy in the Israeli army. He's got to have like snow white hair, looks like Doc Brown from Back to the Future. Just terrified at it. So, I seen Pezeshkian. Iran's biding its time because they recognize Israel's going to try to come for them. And I can't emphasize this enough. The Israelis and Washington genuinely believe that Israel wiped out Iran's air defense system, that Iran is really weak and it's fractured politically, and all they've got to do is just push them a little bit, and it's going to come crumbling down just like Assad did. They really believe that, and that's why I think they're going to do something stupid. And the only, maybe I shouldn't call it the bright side, but I look at it on the bright side when someone gets awakened to reality, that when Israel's attack fails and they get the equivalent of a punch in the nose, then maybe they'll wake up and say, maybe we have to find a different way of doing this as opposed to genocide.
Scott.
I mean, I don't have too much to add to what Larry said. I'll say this about Turkey. If you don't think Turkey's going to raise the flag over Aleppo or Idlib, you don't know Turkey. This is historically, Erdogan has been saying all along, this land is ours. It belongs to us. But Erdogan's going to be smart about this. Is by insisting that that the world respects Syrian sovereignty, it's more of a play against. He wants the United States out of northeastern Turkey. He wants Israel to back off and pull back, not to be slicing up things, so that stability can enter in. And then what you're going to see Erdogan do, and I would put a lot of money on this in Vegas if they ever open the books on this, is in a period of time prior to his next presidential election, Turkey's going to hold referendum, and there will be a vote, and these territories will vote to become affiliated with Turkey and to break away, and they'll cite the United Nations Charter and the right of self-determination and all this kind of stuff, and that's the direction. Turkey's not giving up Aleppo. They own it. It's theirs. Goodbye. The Arab world was dumb enough to let it fall. Idlib is forever part of Turkey now. Is de facto functioning as an extension of Turkey. And I think you're going to see Turkey make a move on Raqqa in an effort to seize territory to create a buffer between Turkey and whatever Kurdish enclave exists when Turkey's finished militarily cleansing its borders. As to going into Hama, Homs, and Damascus, which Erdogan alluded to in a statement to his political party. Now, I don't think Turkey is seeking to seize those, but they will control them, and they will be forever under the Turkish sphere of influence. They will become a de facto extension of this new pan-Turkic, empire that Erdogan plans on building. And I will just tell the Iraqi government understand that he's coming from Mosul as well, and that that's just the reality. He wants to reverse what he believes is the mistakes made at the end of World War One. The two treaties, the one that took place right at the end of the war, and then what Treaty of Lausanne in 1923 that solidified the borders. He says those were mistakes, and that history should have kept these territories with Turkey. So that's the direction he's going. The meeting he has right now, understand this: Erdogan has betrayed everybody. There's nobody in the region right now that says he's a straight up player. He's a straight shooter. His word is his bond. He's coming in and he's trying to play the game to get tactical advantage or whatever. But everybody knows who he's a snake, and nobody's gonna you have to deal with him because he's a reality. But the idea that Erdogan's coming in to build trust and get people to agree to some larger geopolitical plan, everybody knows what's going on. This is a Turkish power grab, and right now nations are on their back feet. But when they finally get settled, we'll see what happens.
Hey, Scott, I checked Roger's thesaurus, and they give credit for the phrase "I've got your back" to Erdogan. So
Yes, but it's not the way we mean it. That's more of a Lawrence Arabia and Dara kind of "I got your back."
Yeah, exactly right.
Everybody's talking about that Russia and Iran war. Even Professor Morandi in Iran, I talked with him. He said that it was a defeat for Iran and Russia. But on the other hand, Syria's largest oil refinery has ceased operation due to Iran halting crude oil shipments to Syria. It was a huge burden for Russia and Iran because of the situation with their military, with their economy. And right now it seems that all the problems are on the shoulders of Turkey, the United States, and Israel. Is that the case, Larry?
Well, I mean, look, neither Russia nor Iran have a border with Syria, so it's not their immediate problem. It most certainly is a problem for Turkey, for Iraq, for Jordan, and for Israel, and the United States by inserting itself. I mean, my God, just the news yesterday that they lifted the $10 million terrorism reward off of al-Jawani's head. I mean, this guy was not just some sort of bit player with ISIS. He was central to ISIS, and having direct relations and being sort of a protege of al-Baghdadi going back to 2014, directly involved with beheadings, murders. I posted a video at sonar21.com last night of that Jordanian pilot that ISIS set afire. I mean, it's horrific stuff. That's who this guy is. And for the last, let's see, go back to 2017, Al-Hayat Tahrir al-Sham has been listed as one of the top 10 most active terrorist groups in the world. And in the last report for 2023, they were the third most active of all ISIS groups because they get lumped under ISIS, ISIS, the granddaddy. and they're one of the grandchildren. And so we get heartburn over bad Bashar al-Assad. Bashir never killed anybody with his own bare hands. He may have ordered some people to be killed and indirectly, but we're dealing with someone who is an actual, honest to God, hands-on, I've killed women, children, civilians, and that's who we're saying, hey, this is a great guy. This is going to bite us in the ass some kind of hard.
Russia went in at the invitation of Syria. Russia didn't invade Syria. They didn't occupy Syria. They didn't use Syria as a base for power projection. They went in to stabilize Syria and their own vested interests. It was described early on as a counter-terrorist operation. People need to look at a map and understand that what the CIA, Turkish intelligence, everybody else was creating in Syria was a festering cesspool of Islamic fundamentalism, radical Islamic fundamentalism that, again, go back and look at the second Chechen war, who Russia was fighting. They fought Chechens, but during that conflict, unlike the first conflict, you had a large number of foreign Wahhabists coming in, brought in by the CIA to destabilize that region. And Russia is very concerned that if you allow terrorist organizations to take control, that they will be used, but directed by the CIA to go north and destabilize southern and northern Caucasus and move inland, maybe into Tatarstan, Bashkiria, other Muslim territories. So this is problematic for the Russians. On the one hand, legally speaking, they can say, well, Bashar's gone, our mission's over, we need to go. But Russia's very interested in making sure that Syria doesn't become this, the Afghanistan of our day, meaning, back Afghanistan in the 1990s, where, people could meet and plot and carry out, things, global terrorist, planning with Al-Qaeda, etc. They don't want Syria to become the heartbeat of the infusion of terrorism into Russia. But look at HTS, large number of Uzbeks, large number of Turkmen, Uyghurs, who could be Kazakh. The bottom line is these are the same ethnic groups that live in day-to-day Russia, in every city that does the construction work, taxi driving. They're the Russian Mexicans. I know I'm going to get killed for that and be called racist, but it's the truth. We have a large number of immigrant labor coming out of Mexico and Latin America that we rely upon. And Russia relies upon a large pool of immigrant labor coming from Central Asian republics. And those nationalities are represented in HTS, who have now been radicalized. And if I'm a CIA case officer tasked with disrupting Russia, which they are tasked with, go to the Russian Mission Center and ask them what their number one mission is. Is it to learn about Russia so we can hug them, or is it to, as Larry said, get their back? And the CIA is not there to do good things for Russia. They're there to bring Russia down, and they will use this. And Russia knows this. Russia's experienced this before in the Chechen War. This is a huge problem for Russia. So I do agree that this is a strategic defeat for Russia, not in terms of, what we think in terms of power projection, etc. But Russia went into Syria to prevent it from becoming what it just became, a terrorist-controlled state that's going to devolve into anarchy and have the possibility, the potential, the probability of having this anarchy projected into Russia, causing more terrorism and maybe even, what happens if Ramzan Kadyrov dies suddenly, and there's a power struggle inside Chechnya on who's going to replace him between clans and Chechen clans, and suddenly the CIA starts infusing Islamic violence into the mix. We now have a potential for a third Chechen conflict. Russia doesn't want this. Chechnya doesn't want this. Dagestan doesn't want this. And yet this is what the CIA is going to do. So this is a very, very dangerous situation for Russia. And I do believe this represents a defeat for Russia. And Russia's struggling to figure out how they're going to respond to this. Iran, look, the axis of resistance was dependent upon the Syrian land bridge. Larry may be right that they're able to reconstitute, alternatives to this using traditional smuggling routes, etc. But even though, no matter how good a smuggling route is, it's not as good as a highway connecting Al Qaim to Lebanon and having the free flow of truck-borne traffic. It's still going to be diminished, but it's also Iran's on its back feet right now. They have a political crisis taking place inside Iran between Pezeshkian and I'm sure I mispronounced that, but so I apologize to every Iranian out there. I mispronounce my own name sometimes. I'll just call him the new Iranian president, and the supreme leader and the IRGC. There's a political tug of war taking place where the new president appears to want to, and a statement came out today. I have to be careful because Professor Morandi corrected me. I like everybody else, every once in a while you see a tweet that you just look at and say, that looks like it's a real tweet. It's a serious tweet. And it was connected to a Persian news bulletin in the Persian language. But, they said that the Iranian president had basically slow rolled True Promise 2, didn't want it to happen, but it happened and he's unhappy about it. And Professor Morandi came back to me and said, no, that's fake news. Don't use that. So I'll take one more effort to withdraw that statement. I'm no longer saying that, but there, a tweet came out today or a news release that said that the Iranians once again have signaled that they are willing to have talks with the United States as long as the United States treats Iran with respect and things of that nature. That's the direction this president wants to go. It's the exact opposite of trying to, reconnect the axis of resistance and double down on dealing with Israel and threatening True Promise 3. So Iran is suffered a strategic setback as well. And so, yeah, I think both Russia and Iran have come out of this diminished, not fatally so, but diminished. And Turkey and Israel, I think, are the big winners here. The United States is still playing catch up. You can't attribute anything to the Biden administration because of the brain dead status of the president. Trump still isn't president, so the United States is this force in waiting that will be a very relevant force. But right now, Turkey and Israel are the big winners in this.
Hey, but let me first, Scott, remember back the Pez dispenser?
Yeah.
Pez Zeshkin.
Pez
Zeshkin. Zesh.
Zeshkin. Pez Zeshkin.
Zeshkin.
All right.
Zeshkin.
Position, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
so.
correct.
Yeah,
I can't say President P.
Yeah, we could do that too.
No, that would insult. I'm joking, everybody out there. I'm not. I just have trouble.
Yeah.
Did you ever see that meme that was done when I would try and say Bab el-Mandeb?
No.
I butchered it a million times. I would say, and finally I said it right. And some very clever person on Twitter. There's one where they show me saying it. Blah 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 blah. And finally I say it right, and there's a crowd of people. I finally got it right. So one day I'll pronounce the Iranian president's name properly.
Let me just make one observation about the difference that we saw with Syria in terms of Russia and Iran's response as compared to what the United States, if the roles had been reversed and the United States was in Syria as Russia and Iran were in Syria and trying to prop up a government where, let's face it, Bashar al-Assad was the equivalent of your brother-in-law who's a drug addict or an alcoholic and refuses to clean his act up. And you keep trying to get him to clean it up, and you keep offering, you're lending him money, you're offering training, you say, hey, I'll get you counseling. Bashar al-Assad was offered everything in the world that Russia and Iran were trying to help. And he refused to meet with Erdogan, refused to attend the BRICS summit, rejected additional military support, directed additional aid that would have actually improved a lot of his officers. Now, if that had been the United States, we would have killed his ass and installed somebody else. We would have made sure that we're not going to let go, man. We're going to hang in there. Whereas Russia and Iran said,
I said that. That's the
guy's going to have to hit rock bottom. You know, we can't, there's only so far we can go with what we can do. And yeah, we walk away. Yeah, it could be embarrassing. The United States is going to say it's going to be embarrassing. But the last thing I didn't see in Syria were a bunch of Syrians running for Russian airplanes, hanging on to them and falling 200 feet to their death. I didn't see a bunch of Syrians clustered around with Russian guards or Iranian guards getting blown up with a suicide bomber. I mean, that shit happens with America. So, you know, what we saw here was, if you will, sort of hope for what I call a more civilized response to, the United States, Great Britain, with the Turks and the Israelis doing everything they could to overthrow the government of Bashar al-Assad. And Russia and Iran finally said, yeah, we could stay in here and we could fight and we could bleed. To what purpose? You know, because Syria goes, it's not going to be our big headache. The big headache's going to come, you know, this is the morning after drinking too much on New Year's Eve for both Israel and Turkey. And they're going to have trouble. They'll have trouble with this hangover.
Thank you so much for being with us today, Scott and Larry. Great pleasure as always.
Either U.S. military officials have admitted that they supported the rebels in Syria and oversaw their assault as they overthrew the Syrian government. This was reported by the major British newspaper, The Telegraph, in a bombshell article titled, U.S. Prepared Syrian Rebel Group to Help Topple Bashar al-Assad, referring to the former president of Syria. This article noted that fighters funded and trained by America and Britain had advanced warning that the Syrian government would be overthrown, and the U.S. helped to oversee this operation. The U.S. military has also revealed that it has had 2,000 troops occupying Syrian territory for years now. Previously, the Pentagon had claimed there were 900 troops. We now know that was misleading. The actual number is 2,000. And the U.S. military has built several military bases, especially in the eastern part of Syria. But the U.S. military also has a military base in the southern part of Syria on the border of Iraq, which is called Atanf. And the eastern part of Syria, which is under U.S. military control, represents around 1/3 of the entire country's territory. And it just so happens to be the part of Syria where the vast majority of the country's oil fields are located. And the U.S. military has been filmed occupying Syria's oil fields. And this is also the part of Syria that produces a lot of wheat. And the U.S. has been occupying those wheat fields in alliance with Kurdish-led militias known as the SDF, which was partially created by the Pentagon. When Bashar al-Assad was in power, the U.S. government was using its control over Syria's oil and wheat fields to starve the Syrian government of the revenue that it would get from exporting oil, which caused an inflation crisis. And they also prevented the government from getting access to its wheat fields, which exacerbated a shortage of bread and other food because Syria had imported a lot of food because so much of the country is desert. It's not very good for growing food. That fertile territory was very strategic while the U.S. was occupying it to starve the Syrian government economically. In addition, the US had imposed brutal economic sanctions known as the Caesar sanctions that caused an economic collapse that led to the complete collapse of the Syrian state. And since Assad has been overthrown and US-backed rebels have taken control of Syria, the White House has made it clear that those 2,000 US troops are not going anywhere. They're going to continue occupying Syrian territory. So what was the role of the US military in this operation to overthrow the Assad government? I'm going to go through some of the details of this bombshell report in the Telegraph, the British newspaper. I'm reading, quote, "The United States prepared a rebel force to join the offensive that overthrew the regime of Bashar al-Assad, fighters have claimed. British and American trained fighters in the Revolutionary Commando Army, RCA, were told, 'This is your moment,' in a briefing by U.S. Special Forces before Assad was ousted. This is the first indication that Washington had prior knowledge of the offensive because the U.S. helped to plan it. And this U.S.-funded rebel group that the U.S. helped to create, called RCA, revealed that it had been told by the U.S. military to scale up its forces and be ready for an attack that could lead to the end of the Assad regime. The U.S. military told them, everything is about to change. This is your moment. Either Assad will fall or you will fall. And they told the rebels to be ready. Now, the excuse that the United States used to justify continued support for these rebels is that the U.S. claimed that they were fighting against remnants of ISIS, Islamic State, which is absurd because ISIS has been destroyed for years now. But this was the excuse that Washington used to continue arming and training and funding these rebels to prepare them for overthrowing the Assad government. In fact, this article noted that the U.S. still pays a salary to these Syrian rebels from the so-called RCA. And in the weeks before they overthrew the Syrian government, the U.S.-controlled air base Atanf in southern Syria on the border of Iraq, the U.S.-funded rebels met with U.S. military forces, and the U.S. helped them to grow. This article notes that there were so-called freelance units, these warlords and gangs that were brought under the command of the U.S.-funded and trained militia. And then these U.S.-backed rebels in the southern part of Syria launched an assault moving toward the Syrian capital, Damascus. They did this in alliance with rebranded Al-Qaeda, the group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, which was based in the north. So here I'm looking at a map, and it shows that the northern part of Syria is occupied by Turkey, a member of NATO and a close U.S. ally. The western part of Syria, the major cities like Aleppo, Idlib, Latakia, and Homs, and then, of course, the capital, Damascus, those major cities are controlled by HTS, which is rebranded Al-Qaeda. And then the U.S. military was backing these rebels that it funded and created, this militia that it created in the southern part of Syria, based in the U.S. military base Atanf, and they were marching northwest while the Turkish-backed rebranded Al-Qaeda forces in the north were marching southwest. So this was a joint operation involving both the U.S. military and Turkey. In fact, when this operation was launched in late November, the Western media was in contact with these foreign-backed rebels, and the mainstream French media outlet, France 24, admitted that, quote, opposition sources in touch with Turkish intelligence said Turkey, which supports the rebels, had given a green light to the offensive. This was also clearly coordinated with Israel. So it was the US, NATO member Turkey, and Israel that were working together to back this offensive to overthrow the Syrian government. And it's not a coincidence that the Syrian rebels, backed by Turkey and the US, launched their offensive on the same day that Israel signed a so-called ceasefire with Lebanon. And Israel immediately violated that ceasefire and carried out dozens and dozens of attacks and bombed Lebanese territory. But the point is that Israel had pushed for this ceasefire to try to weaken the Lebanese resistance forces, especially Hezbollah, after Israel had decapitated the leadership of Hezbollah. And Hezbollah was one of the main allies of Syria. So Israel had helped to divide the resistance forces in the region, which gave the US and Turkey the opportunity to launch this offensive using their proxies inside Syria to overthrow the government of Bashar al-Assad. And Russia also has been tied down in Ukraine, fighting a proxy war against NATO in Ukraine. So Russia was not able to send many forces to help the Syrian government. Going back to this bombshell report in the Telegraph, the article reveals that Washington not only knew about the offensive led by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham HTS, but Washington had precise intelligence about its scale. So the U.S. knew everything that was happening because the U.S. was overseeing this operation. And this article in the Telegraph pointed out that the so-called rebel groups in southern
Revolutionary salute to our family, Big Joe Knight, for the donation to the war chest. Revolution is a way of life. You know, I appreciate the love, soldier. Salute to you.
in Syria, they were not only funded by the U.S., they were created by U.S. special forces and also trained by British counterparts in Jordan. So the United States oversaw all of this operation. It was not organic. It was not plucky Syrian freedom fighters trying to overthrow a horrible, evil regime. It was a U.S. operation funded by the U.S. military with forces trained by the U.S. and the British in a unit that was created by the U.S. in alliance with rebranded Syrian al-Qaeda. If you still don't believe me, here are some more details from this mainstream British newspaper, which again, the sources of this report are from the US military. They are boasting to the British media about how they oversaw this operation. The article notes that US military officers at the Atanf base in southern Syria brought together a group of different Syrian rebels under the command of the RCA, which was funded and created by the US. I'm reading here from the report, quote, all members of the force continued to be armed by the US and to receive their salary of $400 a month, nearly 12 times what the soldiers in the now defunct Syrian army were paid, end quote. So this is another very important detail. Why did the Syrian army not fight? Why did soldiers lay down their arms? A big reason is because the US and European sanctions, known as the Caesar sanctions, completely destroyed the Syrian economy, causing hyperinflation. The Syrian currency lost most of its value, and that meant that people working for the Syrian government, people in the Syrian army, were getting paid almost nothing. They were getting paid like $30 a month when you adjusted for the exchange rate because of the horrible inflation. And then the US military was occupying the oil fields and wheat fields, causing economic collapse. So Syrian soldiers said, we're not going to risk our lives for $30. They didn't want to fight anymore after a decade of US-backed war devastated their country. So they didn't fight. Instead, the US helped oversee this operation to take over Syria. And I need to stress, this was done in alliance with al-Qaeda, or rebranded al-Qaeda, al-Qaeda 2.0. Don't believe me? Again, this is from one of the most mainstream British newspapers, The Telegraph. This article notes that the so-called RCA, the rebel group funded and created by the US military, was working in alliance with fighters from HTS, rebranded Syrian al-Qaeda. As The Telegraph put it, RCA and HTS, quote, were cooperating and communications between the two forces was being coordinated by the Americans at Atanf, end quote. So the US military was directly coordinating communication and operations during this offensive between its own proxies and al-Qaeda 2.0. This newspaper pointed out how ironic this is, that the US is in an effective alliance with HTS, which was al-Qaeda's affiliate in Syria. And also ironic is that the US and Turkey were both supporting these same rebel factions, while in northeastern Syria, Turkey is fighting against the US-funded Kurdish-led militias in the SDF. So the US and Turkey were collaborating together to overthrow the Syrian government. But meanwhile, the proxies of Turkey, which, as you can see in the map, control a significant part of northern Syria, are fighting against the US proxies in northeastern Syria. And if you look at this map, what you can see is that the US and Turkey, and now Israel as well, control a huge part of Syria. So the US is occupying 1/3 of Syria in the northeast. The US is occupying, through its proxies, 1/5 of territory in the south of Syria. Rebranded Al-Qaeda, backed by Turkey and the US and all of these foreign forces, now controls the major cities. And meanwhile, Israel is colonizing more and more Syrian territory in the southwest. Israel has illegally annexed the Syrian sovereign territory in the Golan Heights, which, according to international law, has been illegally occupied by Israel since 1967. And Israel has invaded Syria, sending troops further in, and Israel has seized the tallest mountain in Syria, which is called Mount Hermon. And Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, who's a wanted war criminal facing charges of crimes against humanity at the International Criminal Court at The Hague, Netanyahu went to Mount Hermon in occupied Syrian territory. He boasted that Israel has taken this territory. He made it clear that Israel's not going to ever give it back to Syria. And now Israel is planning on putting radar systems on the tallest mountain in Syria in order to spy all across Syria and Lebanon. And there are reports that Israel is planning on putting artillery on Mount Hermon in Syria so that in the future, Israel could launch artillery shells at Damascus or another major city or into Lebanon as part of Syria's goal, backed by the US, to colonize and control more territory in the region. So we're seeing a kind of neo-colonial takeover of Syria by the US, Turkey, and Israel all working together. And in my analysis here at Geopolitical Economy Report, I have repeatedly cited a very important document, a piece of evidence, which is an email that was sent by the current US National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, back in 2012, when he was the top aide to Hillary Clinton, when she was the Secretary of State in the Obama administration. Jake Sullivan is now National Security Advisor in the Biden administration. But back in 2012, he sent Hillary Clinton this email, and in it, he admitted that, quote, AQ is on our side in Syria, end quote. That is Al-Qaeda. He's acknowledging that the US has been allied with Al-Qaeda in Syria for a decade. And immediately after violent protests broke out in Syria in 2011, the US helped to militarize the situation, and the CIA launched its infamous Operation Timber Sycamore, in which, according to the Washington Post, the CIA was spending $1 billion per year arming and training these Al-Qaeda-linked rebels, these extremists. And again, according to the Washington Post, this made up $1 out of every $15 in the CIA's budget. Those billions of dollars were going to arming and training what the US called the so-called moderate rebels. But as the Washington Post also reported in 2015, those US-trained fighters in Syria then gave their weapons to Al-Qaeda. The Al-Qaeda affiliate in Syria was called Jabhat al-Nusra. And so the US in reality was helping to create, at least to strengthen, what became the largest Al-Qaeda affiliate in world history, which was Jabhat al-Nusra in Syria. Then in 2017, Jabhat al-Nusra rebranded and claimed that it was no longer Al-Qaeda. It went through a series of name changes, including at first Jabhat Fatah Sham, and then finally Hayat Tahrir Sham. But the US Embassy in Syria made it very clear in 2017 that it did not recognize the rebranding, that HTS was still Al-Qaeda, and the US State Department released a $10 million reward, a bounty, on the head of the leader of Syrian Al-Qaeda, Mohammed al-Julani. But fast forward 7 years later, and the US State Department has now lifted that bounty on the head of the new leader of Syria, who was the former leader of Al-Qaeda. He previously went by the name Abu Muhammad al-Julani, but he has since gotten rid of that nom de guerre, his war name, and instead now he's using his birth name, which is Ahmad Ashara. In December, less than 2 weeks after the Syrian government was overthrown, the US State Department set a high-level delegation to Syria to meet with the former leader of al-Qaeda. This meeting included the US Assistant Secretary of State, Barbara Leaf, and she said the meeting with the former leader of al-Qaeda was very productive and he was very pragmatic. Those are quotes. And a US State Department spokesperson confirmed that the US diplomats discussed transition principles supported by the US. That is to say, they're giving their blessing to this al-Qaeda rebranded government in Syria, which the US helped to put in power. The BBC noted that this was the first time in more than a decade that a formal US diplomat met with a regime official inside Syria. Now that the Assad government has been overthrown and is governed by the former leader of al-Qaeda, the US is having diplomatic meetings with him. The BBC described this meeting as a show of readiness to deal with HTS, which the US still designates as a terrorist organization. Washington is effectively laying down a set of conditions before it would consider delisting the group, which is the path towards sanctions relief. So what is the BBC saying? It's the US State Department is telling the former leader of al-Qaeda, saying, we help put you in power. You need to listen to us. You must follow our orders. If you do what we want, if you are an obedient US puppet, we will delist you as a terrorist organization, al-Qaeda leader, and we will end the sanctions that we put on Syria that led to the collapse of the Assad government by destroying the Syrian economy. And of course, while this is happening, the Western media is doing propaganda for the former leader of al-Qaeda, including British state media, the BBC. They published a softball interview in person. A BBC reporter went to Damascus and did a softball interview with the former leader of al-Qaeda, again, formerly known as Abu Muhammad al-Julani. Now he's Ahmad Ashara. And the BBC whitewashed him as a moderate. It insisted that he is not a threat to the West or to neighbors, by which they mean Israel. And of course, that's one of the main demands that the US is making, telling the rebranded al-Qaeda leader in Syria that we will recognize you as the government, we will delist you, we would end sanctions as long as you have good relations with Israel. And he's made it clear, again, the former leader of al-Qaeda, he said very clearly he does not want a conflict with Israel. I mean, the Western propaganda campaign for rebranded al-Qaeda in Syria is incredible. Some of these headlines are, they seem like satire. I mean, it's incredible. So the Telegraph in the UK published an article whitewashing this al-Qaeda leader. The headline was, how Syria's diversity-friendly jihadists plan on building a state. Diversity-friendly jihadists. That's their name for al-Qaeda 2.0. CNN published a very similar puff piece, which showed a photo of al-Julani, or Shara, previously when he was the leader of al-Qaeda, and now since he's rebranded with, support of these PR firms. And the CNN headline was, how Syria's rebel leader went from radical jihadist to a blazer-wearing revolutionary. So on that note, I'm going to conclude. Rebranded al-Qaeda is in power now in Syria, thanks to the US. They've declared victory. Israel's declared victory. Turkey's declared victory. But at the end of the day, the people who lost most are the Syrian people, unfortunately, and the Palestinian people who have been abandoned by the new al-Qaeda 2.0 regime in Syria. But there's more reporting to come.
Over the past 48 hours, the Russian aerospace forces, together with missile forces, have launched more than 150 missile strikes against military installations and energy infrastructure facilities in Ukraine. The most interesting thing is that as of December 22, 2024, Russian missiles are still raining down on Ukraine. Simultaneously with this, the Russian army continues its victorious offensive in all directions of the front. By the way, the loss of the strategically important city of Korokovo by the Ukrainian army came as a real shock to the Ukrainian General Staff and its NATO military advisors. Let me remind you that the cities of Korokovo and Pokrovsk were considered the most important settlements in Donbass. Their loss would mark the transition under the control of the Russian army of not only the entire territory of the Donetsk People's Republic, but also the beginning of offensive actions towards the Dnipropetrovsk region. It is noteworthy that all military correspondents, including Ukrainian ones, recognize the transition of Korokovo under the control of the Russian army. In particular, the authoritative war correspondent Yuri Kotnak stated that the Ukrainian army units were completely dislodged from the central and western parts of Korokovo. According to him, as of December 22, 2024, the remnants of Ukrainian army units are still located on the territory of a thermal power plant and an industrial zone west of Korokovo. It is reported that these units are disorganized, have lost communication with command, and pose no threat to the Russian troops. Most likely, in the coming days or hours, they will either be destroyed or captured. At the same time, war correspondents note that as a result of the fighting in Korokovo, the city has not received significant damage. It is reported that almost all high-rise buildings and construction in the industrial area of this city remained intact. By the way, this fact caused dissatisfaction with the well-known German journalist and Russophobe, Julian Rops. In particular, he stated that the retreating Ukrainian army units had left many high-rise residential buildings untouched in the city, as a result of which Russian soldiers received safe shelters that reduced the effectiveness of Ukrainian artillery and FPV drones. According to him, the Ukrainians needed to destroy all the buildings of the city. However, they did not do this, which indicates that the retreat of the Ukrainian army units from the city was chaotic and disorganized. By the way, the Western media still do not cover the loss of the strategically important city of Korokovo by the Ukrainian army. At the moment, all their attention is focused on a missile strike on the Russian city of Relsk, in the northwestern part of the Kursk region. The fact that the Ukrainian High Military Command decided to launch a missile attack on the Russian city at the very moment when the Ukrainian army lost Korokovo indicates that the Kiev regime has decided to once again distract the world media from another major defeat of Ukrainian troops on the battlefield. Let me remind you that this is not the first time the Kiev regime has resorted to this method. The same thing happened after the loss of such major cities as Avdiivka, Seladovo, Ukrainsk, Bakhmut, and Soledar by the Ukrainian army. At the same time, military experts note that the Ukrainian army's missile strikes are becoming increasingly indiscriminate with each new time. For example, the missile attack on Relsk looked more like a terrorist act than a military operation. The fact is that the Ukrainian army and NATO forces attacked this city in the afternoon, when there were many people on the streets. Moreover, American missiles rained down not on military installations, but on a school, a bus station, a cultural center, a pedagogical college, and a local wedding house. Seeing all this, even many pro-Ukrainian Western experts and analysts were forced to admit that the missile attack on Relsk was more like a terrorist act, an act of intimidation aimed at terrifying the citizens of the Kursk region. My dear truth seekers, let me remind you that as a result of the missile strike on the city of Relsk, about 50 civilians were injured. As of December 22nd, the deaths of 6 people and one 6-month-old child were confirmed. At the same time, it is reported that the death toll may simply skyrocket shortly, as dozens of seriously injured people are in hospitals. According to the acting governor of the Kursk region, Alexander Kinstein, only civilian objects of the city, including 3 apartment buildings and several private houses, were damaged due to this missile attack. According to him, these civilian facilities were attacked by American HIMARS multiple launch rocket systems, armed not only with conventional missiles, but also with ATACMS ballistic missiles. I am absolutely sure that the perpetrators and customers of this terrorist attack will receive well-deserved retribution. Security forces and the army of our country will do everything possible to punish these criminals, the acting governor of the Kursk region Alexander Kinstein said. And just a few hours after this statement by the acting governor of the Kursk region, the Russian aerospace forces, together with combat crews of Iskander complexes, launched a massive missile strike on the Sumy region. In particular, on the morning of December 21st, 2 Russian Su-35S fighter jets attacked the military base of the 21st Separate Mechanized Brigade of the Ukrainian Army. It is reported that Russian fighter jets attacked this military facility at the time of the construction personnel of the base on the parade ground. As a result, Russian fighter jets managed to destroy more than 60 Ukrainian soldiers, including their commanders. In addition, about 20 armored vehicles and pickup trucks were also destroyed. Simultaneously with this, Russian reconnaissance drones managed to discover one multiple launch rocket system HIMARS, which carried out a missile attack on the city of Relsk the day before. At the same time, sources in the Russian military department confirmed that at the time of the discovery of this American missile system, the enemy was preparing for another missile attack on Russian territory. Immediately after that, the Russian Iskander-M ballistic missile launched a pinpoint strike on the American multiple launch rocket system. Later, the reconnaissance drone confirmed the complete destruction of the target. According to the Russian military, as a result of this strike, the multiple launch rocket system HIMARS, along with a combat crew, was completely destroyed. Representatives of the Russian military department confirmed the death of 2 U.S. Army officers, who entered flight data into the ATACMS ballistic missiles. In addition, an escort vehicle carrying 3 officers and 1 soldier of the Ukrainian Army was also destroyed. All of them are reported dead.
Kofi, follow me.